Reading the memo brought back memories I wished to forget. Amy, my faithful but cheating ex-wife, is now my boss. How ironic. I should have expected this, but I was just relieved to be out of the marriage. Now it's haunting me even more. Amy once said I was a heart attack waiting to happen, and she was right. My doctor had warned me, but I ignored it, thinking my hard work for the family was justified. Amy was always ambitious, craving luxuries like our mansion, the pool, and an unused country club membership. It was my duty to provide, or so I believed. The love of my life is now in charge of my life again. This realization snapped me out of my apathy. I couldn't work under her, not after learning about her affairs. I packed my things, picked up my resignation letter, and left the office for the last time, leaving the letter, phone, car keys, and credit card on Megan's desk. It's been a pleasure working with you, Megan. I wish you the best. You're a valuable employee, and I appreciate all your help. Take care, and don't let her mess with you. If she does, use me as a threat to get fair treatment. So, you're really leaving, Sam? This isn't just a threat? She asked, waving my letter. Yes, Megan. You know I can't work for someone I don't respect. With all those horrible details, she's lost any chance of my respect. I'll miss you, Sam. She'll be furious when she finds out. She's been pestering me about your workload. I didn't tell her anything, but I felt like I was betraying you. I'm sorry. I should have spoken up sooner. I smiled. Don't worry. You have to protect your job. There's nothing you could have said to change things. I knew it was over when the merger memo came. I have no secrets here, as you know. What should I say when she asks where you are? Tell her the truth. She won't be able to twist it. Do what she wants as long as it doesn't compromise your values. It was my pleasure, dear. I'll stay in touch, I said, shaking her hand and kissing it. As I was getting into my car, a black limousine arrived at the office and Amy stepped out with two well-dressed men, looking every bit the high-status businesswoman. In reality, though, we all knew she was just a well-paid escort with a title. She looked professional in her business suit, but she always looked good in any outfit. She didn't see me, which was perfect. I waited a couple of minutes for her to enter the building before leaving the parking lot for the last time. I had settled my affairs, sold what I needed, and put everything else in storage. My doctor had advised a change of scenery, and I finally took his advice. I spent the next 3 months traveling, sightseeing, and taking a break from work stress. Eventually, I ended up in a small town with a temperate climate, friendly residents, and excellent fishing. I rented a small 3-bedroom cottage with a workshop by the lake, with an option to buy. It had everything I needed to start fresh. Sitting on the back porch, sipping a cold drink, I wondered how Amy reacted to my disappearance. I decided to call Megan the next day to find out. Hey Megan, it's Sam. How's it going over there? Sam, it's so good to hear from you. I was starting to worry you'd disappeared. I laughed, sitting on my deck watching the water. Not quite vanished, but the view here is amazing. Wish you were here. How's everything there? Sam, you sure know how to stir things up. Amy has been causing chaos, laying people off left and right. Kevin Paxton quit last week after she moved him to a windowless basement office. He couldn't stand it and resigned. I'm sorry to hear that. Kevin was one of the best. What is Amy thinking? She's going to ruin everything. How is she treating you? Megan chuckled. She's frustrated. She tried to fire me because I let you go without her talking to you first. I told her she could try to fire me, but I'd take her and the company to court. I reminded her of what you said, and she backed off, realizing her actions could backfire. Megan giggled and continued. So now I'm the secretary to the demanding executive VP of operations. I guess it's about keeping your enemies closer. I told her I wanted a substantial pay raise with the promotion. She wasn't happy, but just grinned. In the end, I got what I wanted. Megan updated me on the latest office gossip. I was glad my departure had disrupted Amy's plans. I changed my life for my own good, and Amy's presence pushed me to stop procrastinating. This was just a bonus. However, I worried it might affect everyone else, which wasn't my intention. The next morning, I ran out of sugar and decided to visit a nearby store. Their lot borders mine, with an open paddock in between. As I left the store, I almost bumped into a young couple. After apologizing, I noticed a stressed woman in her early 20s behind the counter. Can I help you? She asked, as the baby started whimpering and a couple of cars pulled up to the gas pumps. She sighed, Where is Jillian when I need her? I smiled and said, Can I help? I'm Sam and I live nearby. It looks like the baby needs attention and I just need some sugar. I can help out until you're done or until Jillian arrives. Why don't I handle the customers while you take care of your baby? She smiled back. I'm Vivian, and I'd be very grateful for your help, Sam. I took care of the travelers while they filled their tanks, washing windshields and chatting with them. After collecting their payments, I returned to the store, where another customer had just walked in. I went over to chat with him. What can I do for you, sir? Just looking at your fishing rods, he replied. I'm on a business trip and my car's in for repairs. It'll take all day, so I thought I'd do some fishing to pass the time. He looked like a businessman, much like I was a year ago. Seeing he was about to buy cheap gear, I asked, Do you fish often? He shook his head. Not really, but I'd like to if I had time. I smiled and convinced him that investing in better equipment would increase his chances of catching fish and enjoying his time. I then helped a dozen other customers before Vivian finished settling her daughter. Thank you so much, Sam. Why does it always get busy when you least expect it? Bessie doesn't usually fuss now, and Jillian is always here by this time. I grinned. To explain it, I'd need to understand quantum mechanics, which I don't. Maybe you need more reliable help. Vivian's face fell, and I quickly apologized, realizing I had upset her. With sad eyes and a tear, she said, Sam, it's not your fault, but I'm a widow. Vivian told me her husband, Greg, an Army reservist, had been eliminated in a training accident. His truck flipped over and he died, never knowing he was going to be a father. Bessie was likely conceived the night before he left. Wiping her tears, Vivian said, He would have been a good father. He had so many ideas, and this place was one of them, gesturing to the store and land. Over the next few weeks, I often helped out at the store. I know what you're thinking, and you're probably right. Vivian was beautiful, and my hormones had been dormant for a while, but it also restored my sense of self-worth. Amy's infidelity had made me feel unneeded and inadequate as a provider. That was the final insult. Vivian seemed to understand my need to help. She never directly asked for it, but always appreciated it. Spending time with her made me feel good. She was fun, caring, and grateful, which was exactly what I needed. I was heading home from another day at the store when my phone interrupted my thoughts. Hi, Sam. Lucky you're not a secretary. You wouldn't last a day with your phone manners, a woman's voice purred. Hi, Megan. You caught me off guard. It's almost 7 p.m. Is something urgent? Megan's tone changed. I waited until I got home to call because I think my work phone is tapped. Sam, you need to be careful. She hired a private investigator to follow you. She asked me to set it up, and I can't refuse without risking my job. But I wanted to warn you so you can lay low, I sighed. Is she trying to intimidate me to pass away? I don't know, Sam. She's stressed, working long hours to turn things around. She looks older and has gained weight. She can't be pregnant, or maybe she could, but not by me. Megan giggled. No, it's from stress and comfort eating. She's frantic to find you and blames me for letting you leave without talking to her. Good grief. Ignoring her is useless. Here's an idea. In a week, give her a fake report saying the investigator couldn't find me, but confirm my phone is active. Tell her you convinced me to talk to her. Megan sounded hesitant. Are you sure, Sam? I don't feel good about this. Don't worry, Megan. Look after yourself first. I appreciate your help, but don't put yourself at risk. A week later, Megan texted me before work. PH02, BB2DayB, ready for. Call today sometime. I chuckled at the acronyms. BB was for bad boss. Damn these young people and their tech. I wondered what I'd say to Amy, but decided to figure it out when the time came. As promised, the call came. I answered Amy's number. Yes, Amy, what do you want? She seemed caught off guard by my abrupt greeting. What's that cow my secretary been up to? I hung up. The phone rang again. Damn it, Sam. I hung up again. The next call, Megan quickly answered. Are you going to talk to her or not? I grinned. Tell her to be polite next time and she might get more than 2 words out of me. I'm sick of her attitude. Megan chuckled. My pleasure, Sam. Talk to you later. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. Sam? Yes, Amy. What do you want? A pause. Can I talk to you for a minute? I'm listening. Another pause. Megan cried on your shoulder. What did she say? Megan is very capable. It doesn't matter what she told me. Your so-called secretary is the only reason you're talking to me now. You should be grateful to her. So, what do you want? I thought I heard a sigh. I'm sorry, Sam. I'm just a little cranky lately. I know Megan is doing a good job and I appreciate it. Amy was trying to diffuse my irritation, but I wondered why she gave in so quickly. Get to the point, Amy. What do you want? I heard Amy suppress a sob. I really need your advice, Sam. I thought we would work together as a team, but you quit and disappeared before I could explain. I snickered. I saw the writing on the wall, Amy. When your company bought mine, I didn't see the point in staying to be humiliated again. So have a happy life, Amy. Goodbye. No, please, Sam, I need to talk to you in person, not over the phone. Just give me 30 minutes to pitch my idea. I'm begging you. I don't know who else to turn to. I gritted my teeth, wanting to hang up and forget her. After a long pause, I finally said, "Okay, Amy, but I'm not chasing you. You come to my office. I'll arrange it with Megan, and she'll let you know when and where." I hung up before she could respond, and half expected her to call back, but the phone stayed silent all night. Amy was annoyed. "Why do I have to go through Megan? Why can't you just give me Sam's address so I can go alone?" Megan gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles turning white. "Amy, this is what Sam wants. He doesn't want to see you. In his words, my way or the highway. I don't enjoy sitting in the car with you for hours either, but if he wants me to bring you, you'll have to deal with it. I won't be there for your conversation, though. I'll make myself scarce." I started chopping vegetables for the Italian sauce I was making for dinner. Megan had called 30 minutes ago to let me know they'd arrive soon, which meant they'd be here in about 20 minutes. I wanted Amy to feel uncomfortable, so I stayed busy to put her at a disadvantage. 15 minutes later, I heard a knock. "It's open. Come in." "Well, don't you look completely at home," remarked Megan with a genuine smile. I chuckled. "Hi, Megan. Good to see you too. You look good." I saw Amy standing behind her looking worried. "Amy?" That was all I said, but I noticed her tired eyes and weight gain. Megan's estimate of 10 pounds might have been a bit harsh, but it wasn't far off. "I could use a drink," Megan said, giving me a friendly hug and a kiss on the cheek. "The country air suits you. You look great." "There's wine, beer, or Coke in the fridge," I replied, holding up my grubby hands. "Want something to drink?" I glanced at Amy. Amy noticed my cold tone and lowered her head, realizing this meeting would be tough. "Hi, Sam. Wine would be nice. Megan's right. You look good." Megan opened a bottle of white wine, poured 2 glasses, and handed one to Amy. "Which way to the view?" she asked, waving the wine bottle. "I'll leave you two alone. Remember," she pointed the bottle at me, "I'm not here to clean up a crime scene, so behave." I smiled and pointed to the back door. "Don't worry about me. There's a fishing rod on the deck if you want to try it out." Megan rolled her eyes. "Not likely. I wouldn't know what to do with a fish even if I caught one," she said as she slipped out the door, leaving Amy and me alone. "Take a seat and tell me why you're here," I said, pointing to a chair and returning to chopping herbs. Amy hesitantly sat down, trying to lighten the mood. "Nice place you have here. Small, but nice." I tensed, my irritation showing. "This isn't small talk, Amy," I said, focusing on the basil. "Just say what you need to, and we can get back to our lives." Amy sighed and took a sip of wine. "Can I ask one question?" "Ask as many as you want, Amy. Doesn't mean I'll answer, but try." "Why did you leave?" she asked, watching for any sign of anger. Knowing my temper, she could see I was trying to stay calm. I dropped the knife and turned to her. "You don't need a degree to understand my motives, Amy. You're a vice president now. You must have some brains. Figure it out." Amy looked irritated. "That was a low blow, even for you, Sam. I'm capable of doing my job, but I'm not a mind reader." I folded my arms and stared at her. Amy seemed to wilt under my gaze. "You're right, Amy. You're not a mind reader, and few people are. But in your job, you need to read people, understand and guess their motives. A good manager finds and utilizes their employees' talents for the company's benefit. It has to be a win-win situation. Do you really want to know what I think of you and your talents, Amy?" She shivered at my question, clearly expecting an answer that wouldn't boost her confidence, but she squared her shoulders. "Okay, Sam, I'll bite. What do you think of my corporate talents?" I almost laughed at her weak attempt at teasing and returned to cooking. "You're a bulldozer, Amy. You have the finesse of a bull in a china shop." Her open mouth said it all. "Bulldozer," she repeated, stunned. "Care to elaborate on that?" I smiled inwardly as I continued chopping. "Yes, Amy, bulldozer. You take the most direct path to your goal without considering the effort or analyzing the situation. You don't think about who you can help or who can help you. You only think about yourself, charging ahead and ignoring anyone in your way. That's why you're in your current unenviable position. You've burned bridges and ruined opportunities." I saw a tear in her eye. For the first time, she seemed at a loss. "No, I don't want to," she said weakly. "Everything I did was for us. But your ego got in the way. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. If you had stayed, I could have explained my plan. You still haven't told me why you left. I tasted the sauce and added more salt. I saw the writing on the wall, Amy. I know you're here to cut the deadwood. You're the person sent to remove those who needed to go for the company to move forward. I agree it was necessary. I just made it easier for you to make those decisions. I saw the anticipation in her eyes. This was the conversation she wanted. Sam Beckman, for a smart man, you sure do some stupid things. I had no intention of firing you. If you were smart, you'd know that. Everything I did was for us, to make your dreams come true. That's quite a trick. It tugs at my heartstrings and strokes my ego simultaneously. But I never said you weren't good at stroking. I remember countless times we sat in the kitchen talking about how the fools at the top were ruining the company. I believed in you, Sam. I believed you could get the company back on its feet. Now I have the chance to help you turn your ideas into reality. I worked hard to give you that chance, telling my bosses I could make your company profitable. And what did that get me? Now it's the "it's all your fault" angle. You've left me to my fate without hearing me out. I keep fighting, working long hours on what you said could be done. All I need is a little help from the one man I've ever loved. It's you, Sam. We can sit back and reap the rewards of our efforts. I love you, and this is our future. I'm not naive enough to think we'll get back together, though I dream about it. But I see now that we can have a good business relationship and be happy. So, what do you say? How about we call a truce, start working together, and show them we're a force to be reckoned with? Amy took another sip of wine and leaned back, her fervor fading. She had made her point, and now it was up to me. While she talked, I finished the sauce and put water on to boil for the spaghetti. The only thing I could think of were Julius Caesar's last words, "Et tu, brute." Betrayal was my first thought when I found out about her actions. Despite everything, Amy was very attractive. One thought kept me sharp, encapsulating her past and present actions. Good, Amy. A good manager considers all aspects before deciding. Let's say I buy into your brilliant plan. Why do you think I can help you? Amy's eyes flashed with annoyance. I've told you I believe you can do it. You have the credibility within the company to get the support of the employees. They trust and respect you. Your obstacles were with upper management, and my position as VP has removed them. I smiled sadly at her naivety. You don't see that your very presence as VP undermines my ability to gain support. But I'm not surprised. You refuse to believe you've done anything wrong. Others see it differently, Amy. I saw the concern on Amy's face as I continued. Have you ever wondered why you struggle to gain support for your ideas? The rumor mill has done a thorough job informing everyone about your business practices and ethics, and not a word of it came from me. Amy's face froze. I was treading into territory she wanted to avoid. People see you as someone who slept her way to the top, leaving more deserving employees in the dust. They know about our failed marriage and how I kept my dignity and their respect by divorcing you. If I accepted your offer, it would signal that everything you did was acceptable. I'd go from a wronged husband to a disgraced employee, losing their respect and my effectiveness. Tears formed in Amy's eyes as my words sank in. Her confidence was cracking. I don't believe you, Sam. I've shown I'm willing to work hard. I took a powerful position to get the job done. I'm capable, or Jason wouldn't have given me the job. I shook my head, my anger turning to sadness. Amy truly believed her own narrative, perhaps out of self-preservation. Did Jason approach you with the takeover offer, or did you push him? Amy wiped her face with a tissue from her purse and straightened up. Hopefully it doesn't matter what you or anyone else thinks. I'm not Jason's puppet. I approached him, and he put up a lot of barriers before letting me present my proposal to the board. I nodded. Just as I thought. Did Jason entertain you when he finally let you speak to the board? Her sigh gave her away. Trying to gather her thoughts, she asked, Why do you think that? I grinned. Do you know why I was good at my job, Amy? I've always made profiles of everyone I meet, including you. My mistake was trusting you unconditionally because I loved you. That cost me dearly, so I adjusted your profile. As my grandfather said, there's no point in getting older if you're not getting smarter. I assess people by their words and actions to see if they fit their profile. Knowing Jason, I doubt he cares if you succeed. If you fail, he'll blame the board for approving your proposal. I saw a glimmer of realization in her eyes as I continued. If you succeed, Jason gets the credit for bringing in a promising executive. If you fail, he'll just point fingers at the board. Jason doesn't care if you're smart enough or foolish enough to think you can pull this off. As long as you keep him entertained, he'll be satisfied. You're on your own, Amy, a small fish in a big pond full of hungry piranhas. Amy clutched the napkin tightly. Everything I'd said was true, and she seemed frightened by the reality of her situation, but she still tried to deny it. So, you don't think I can do it? I shrugged. No, Amy, I know you can't. I saw anger building in Amy, but continued. It would take a huge Saturn V rocket to launch you from your VP position into corporate oblivion. Where will your precious security be then, Amy? I turned away to calm myself. From what I hear, you've only managed to spin your wheels and create so much smoke that everyone else struggles to do their jobs. I'll be surprised if the next shareholders meeting doesn't announce a 25% drop in profits. But that's just speculation. No matter how you spin it, it all comes down to your reasons for starting this. You said you loved me and did it for both of us. Amy shuddered but nodded. But really, it's all about your safety, not ours. If you loved me, you would have tried to stop me from working myself to pass away. You called me a heart attack waiting to happen. I paused, then continued. You didn't try to stop me, or if you did, it wasn't convincing. You just waited for me to drop dead. You could have threatened divorce to make me think about us. Your infidelity made me realize things. That's why I'm here now, and feeling great. I love you, Sam. I didn't want to divorce you. You didn't want to divorce me, but you were willing to let me work myself to pass away. Does that sound loving? I finished sarcastically. Amy couldn't refute my arguments and couldn't bear to look at me. I didn't mean what I said then, and I love you even now. I regret a lot of what I said, Amy pleaded. My grim face must have shown doubt. I'm sure you believe what you're saying, Amy, but that doesn't change our situation. Don't you realize I can't trust you now, either personally or in business? I've decided to end this discussion. You made it to the top. Now you'll have to wait for Jason to retire or disappear before you can aim for CEO. You've decided this is a good time to solidify your position and go for that coveted role. Amy tried to object, but I stopped her. Your plan is clear. Take over my old firm and get me to work hard again to benefit you. I'm amazed you expected me to follow your orders. When I kicked you out, I thought it was clear I wasn't weak. Maybe it was my fault for setting you up to fail. I saw Amy struggling to hold it together. One moment I blamed you. The next, I was taking responsibility. You're talking nonsense, Sam. I think you're the one with it backward, she countered. I hung my head and sighed in despair. Good, Amy. You've heard being cruel to be kind. I wasn't being kind. I led you on and then had to cut you down harshly. Instead, I went to Jason and made him fulfill his promise to make you a GP. I didn't want to see you left to suffer, even though you deserved it. I made a mistake by making you think there was a chance I'd take you back. Your love cards on my birthday, Christmas, and other occasions proved that. I checked the sauce and added water to the nearly dry pot. If I did what I should have, you'd have disappeared to some unknown place to start over. That's what I want you to do now. Walk away and start over. Tears streamed down her face. You might have to go back to a secretarial job, but it won't be as bad as staying and fighting. You'll be lucky if you're allowed to lick stamps while some post office idiot entertains you. I watched as my words sank in. Her defiance, not humility, made me sad. I know I hurt you, Sam. I berate myself every day for it, but what you said is just evil. You don't believe in me, yet I believe in you. Well, if that's how you feel, watch and I'll show you how it's done. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. Come in, I said irritably. Is everything okay, Sam? I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, Vivian asked. I sighed, realizing I'd lost my temper, and checked my watch. I'm sorry, Vivian. Please don't come in. Amy was just leaving. I glared at Amy, waiting for her to get up. Amy looked at Vivian standing in the doorway. She was younger, maybe by 5 or 10 years, and very pretty with long, flowing, dark blonde hair. Amy's face showed her realization of why Vivian was here. She turned to me, saw the food simmering on the stove, and began to cry as she understood the situation. I glanced at the dinner I was making for Vivian and me, recognizing what Amy was thinking. What? You thought this was for you? I told you this wasn't a social event. Don't be upset that I invited a friend to dinner. We broke up years ago. The only reason I let you come here was to knock some sense into you. Amy stood up, head down, and rushed past Vivian, muttering, Tell Megan I'll be waiting in the car. I hope I didn't make things worse, Vivian said, watching Amy leave. I can go if you need to deal with this. Can I tell Jillian I don't need her as a babysitter? It's not your fault. I'm glad you showed up when you did. I hugged Vivian and kissed her cheek. You can watch the pasta for a minute. I need to tell Megan our meeting is over and she can take Amy home. I stepped out onto the back terrace and saw Megan napping in the afternoon sun. Amy's words echoed in my mind. Now that she was vice president, she had removed all the obstacles blocking my ideas, and it got me thinking. How do you like the view? I asked. It's just like you said, Sam. Amazing. Megan smiled, closing her eyes. How did it go in there? I didn't hear any fire shots. Not well. She's not backing down. She's in the car waiting for you. Can I ask you something? Sure, Sam. You can ask me anything. I smiled weakly. How do you see your future at work? How ambitious are you, Megan? Her eyes widened at the unusual question. I'm not sure what you're getting at, Sam, but if it's what I think, I'd like to get Amy's job first. She stood up. I know I can do it well, but I won't compromise my values. Why do you ask? I think it's time to end this circus, I said determinedly. Can you contact Kevin Paxton and meet me in town in 3 weeks? I might have an offer for both of you. Megan nodded. I led Megan back inside, where she saw Vivian at the stove. She poked me in the ribs, whispering, Now I see why Amy ran off, you old dog. Megan's look made me smirk. She's gorgeous and probably the final nail in Amy's coffin. Amy is out of her league. Never was in her league. I'm not even in her league. She's licking her wounded pride right now. I nodded, appreciating Vivian's beauty. And she's just as lovely on the inside. Vivian looked up as I introduced Megan. Nice to meet you. Sam has so many women in his life, I'm not sure he has room for me, she said hesitantly. Megan chuckled. Don't worry about the other women you see Sam with. He's a one-woman man, sweetheart, and from what I can tell, he's got his eye on you. Watch out, though. Sam can be a real charmer when he's interested. I wasn't sure what Megan meant, as we hadn't been in social situations together. I felt my face redden. I think you've said enough for one night, Megan. It's time to leave. As I nudged her toward the front door, she looked back with a final comment. If you're smart, Vivian, you won't let this guy slip away. She kissed me on the cheek and said goodbye. Be smart. I'll see you in 3 weeks. Vivian and I sat on the back deck, sipping Merlot and watching the waterfowl. We chatted casually about the day, and I told Vivian the details of my failed marriage to Amy and its aftermath. You don't want to do this, do you, Sam? Vivian observed. No, I don't, I admitted, but it has to be done. I can't let everyone lose their jobs because I took the easy way out. I have no choice. After a pause, Vivian said, You know, Amy still has feelings for you. I almost laughed. I knew that before, but I don't think so now, not after what I said to her today. I was harsh, but it didn't seem to matter. Vivian smiled. For all your toughness, it's clear you care about others, Sam, including Amy. We women appreciate that quality in our men. I had no response, so I went back to my beer. Vivian patted my arm reassuringly. I believe you'll do the right thing for everyone. I nodded with a grim feeling. But I'm afraid not everyone will agree. You didn't make her bed, Sam. She did, and now she has to lie in it, Vivian said, breaking the silence after a couple of minutes. I was lost in my thoughts when she caught me off guard. Speaking of beds, when are you going to show me yours? Her statement came out of nowhere and surprised me. Huh? Vivian chuckled. Megan told me that if I wanted you, I shouldn't hesitate. She said, if you're smart, Vivian, you won't let this guy out of your grasp. So here I am, holding on to someone I think is worth it. So you're interested in more than just a platonic relationship. I sounded like a nervous teenager testing the waters, my poor track record with women making it hard to look her in the eye. Vivian giggled. You're blushing, Sam. My ears burned, and a sheepish grin spread across my face. You sure know how to make a guy feel awkward. I rubbed my face to regain my composure. That day I walked into your store, saw you looking shattered, and offered my help. I felt like a knight in shining armor rescuing a damsel in distress. Her smile was priceless. You were my knight on his trusty steed that day, and you still are, Vivian said, kissing my cheek affectionately. Since that day, I've depended on you. Now I understand why you've supported me all these months. She paused, seeing my confusion. It must have been hard when Amy showed you weren't needed. Well, if it helps, I need you, Sam. I haven't felt this comfortable and relaxed since Greg died. Yes, it's a man thing. Amy didn't understand it, and I couldn't explain it either. Vivian patted my arm reassuringly. You've been good to me, Sam, and I appreciate it. It wasn't until Megan's antics that I realized I had more than friendly feelings for you. So, do you want to take it to the next level? Vivian's face showed sincerity and hope. Well, madam, if you insist, I shall have to show you my etchings, I said with a sly grin. Vivian's face lit up. Forget the etchings. I'm more interested in the tool you used to make them. We both laughed as she stood up and headed for the door, saying, "Race you to the bedroom." Later, I saw Kevin and Megan watching me walk into the restaurant. My mood must have been obvious. Kevin stood up and offered his hand. "Long time no see, old friend. It's great to see you after all these years. You look 10 years younger." I smiled, shaking Kevin's hand. "It's good to see you too. I'm doing great. How's life?" "Ooh, average to average. Can't complain because no one ever listens," Kevin said. I smiled and kissed Megan on the cheek. "You look as radiant as ever. I don't know what you saw in this brute, but I hope he treated you well," Megan chuckled. "He may be rough, but I like the rugged type." "How do you know?" Kevin asked. I smiled. "Because I'm a people watcher. I saw your reaction when I asked Kevin to be here today. I think you two would make a formidable team." Kevin grinned. "Speaking of which, what's the offer?" I chuckled. "Straight to business, Kevin. You'll never change." "Okay, let's talk business. Then we can relax and enjoy the food." As the waitress served our drinks, I began. "The company is in serious trouble. If nothing is done soon, everyone will be looking for new jobs. As you know, options are limited." I pulled several folders from my briefcase and handed a white one to Kevin. "Feel free to disagree or add anything." While Kevin studied the folder, I opened another. "Here's a list of people you need to get on your side. I'll leave it to you to figure out how." Kevin flipped through the folder. "It's clear you've thought this through. Not only are you targeting JPL and Amy, but also Dobson Inc. and Jason." I saw Kevin's expression and knew what he was thinking. "We don't have a choice, Kevin. Since Dobson bought out JPL, we need to attack from both sides. My original focus was on JPL, but now we must target Dobson's board too. If you can get the board on your side and Megan handles JPL, we have a chance, albeit a small one." Kevin handed the folder to Megan. "You're right. Sam's situation is more than dire. It's anorexic. But I see potential. It wouldn't hurt to involve Jack Deacon. He's a master at accounting." I nodded grimly. "Jack is a genius with numbers, but we didn't get along. He never liked me." Megan nodded while looking through the folder. "I agree with Kevin. Jack should be involved for his creative accounting skills. I'll talk to him first." Kevin picked up the second folder and examined the list of names. "I'm not sure I can meet some of these people, let alone bring them on board." I smirked at Kevin's doubt. "What do you think I've been doing for the last 3 weeks? There's one name, Slovak, that I couldn't get close to. If he's not on board, none of this will work. How did you become so influential?" "Influential? My back. If I were that good, Slovak would be on our side." I handed Kevin another folder. "This is a list of meetings you have scheduled with everyone except Slovak." Megan looked up from the folder. "Isn't Slovak Jerry Cambridge's uncle? Maybe Jerry can arrange a meeting with him." Kevin and I exchanged glances and shrugged. Kevin asked, "Can you figure this out, Megan?" Megan smiled. "I have a meeting with Jerry tomorrow about the trip plans. I'll ask him then." This made me feel a bit better. "I've organized the times and dates for you. Things are getting messy, even in the higher levels of government." I outlined my concerns, but didn't have a solid plan yet. "We need to finalize the details and get everyone together to complete the final version." Megan shook her head. "I can't believe Jason didn't see this coming." "Oh, he knows," I scoffed. "He just doesn't care. He has a scapegoat, and Amy's in for a nasty surprise when he betrays her." Megan wrinkled her nose sympathetically. "Amy may be selfish, but she doesn't deserve that." I nodded. "Jason will need to act before the next quarterly meeting to stay clean. We must act quickly and precisely. If we impress the big shots, we'll succeed." Kevin shook his head. "You think we're going to accept your offer?" I smiled. "Come on, Kevin, think about it. What do you have to lose? If Amy could pitch her ideas, you can do it too. You haven't found a job that matches your skills, have you? I know you have issues with Amy, and Jason isn't on your Christmas list either." I nodded to Megan. "She believes in you as much as I do. You'll run with it. I've done all I can. Now you just need to bring home the bacon." Kevin laughed along with Megan. "All tied up with a neat pink ribbon," he said sarcastically. Megan frowned. "What about Jason? He won't give up without a fight, and he has the support to sabotage us before we even start," she said, looking through the second folder. I grinned. "Leave Jason to me. You won't have to deal with him. Just keep Amy busy so she doesn't do something stupid like commit professional self-destruction while taking everyone else down." Megan smirked. "After your conversation the other day, she's our least worry. Vivian's presence rattled her, and now she's determined to prove you wrong. You really messed with her head, Sam. I've had to tweak a lot of her proposals just to make her look somewhat competent. Kevin, Megan, and I enjoyed our meal while discussing our plans. As we said our goodbyes, we arranged to meet again in 2 days with others to finalize our strategy. The meeting was heated. Megan and Kevin had brought in a half-dozen allies to help. Jack Deacon was one of them, and as I predicted, he was hostile but listened. "Let me see the financial packet," he demanded. We watched as he quickly reviewed the numbers. "This is nonsense, Beckman. You can't substantiate these numbers." I wanted to snap at him, but managed to stay calm. "They're just estimates, projected approximations." Deacon smiled sarcastically. "Don't quit your day job, Beckman. These numbers are as unreliable as weather forecasts. It's time to show the money." I knew I had to handle him carefully. "Listen, Deacon, can I call you Jack? I know we haven't seen each other since Amy took over, but you're here because you're the best at what you do." I could see his chest heaving, sensing I was on the right track. Jack grinned. "I may seem like a mere laborer to you, but I'm not so socially inferior that I don't recognize being patronized." I gritted my teeth in annoyance. "I know that sounded patronizing, but it doesn't make my words any less true." I addressed everyone in the room. "What will you do when the next shareholders meeting rolls around? I don't care if you agree with this proposal or not. I can leave and return to my life, letting you figure out how to get in line for unemployment. Jack, you're a genius with numbers and can get a job quickly. But what about them? We need you to get creative and make those projections work." I saw the gears turning in his mind. "So this isn't some scam to move your wife up the corporate ladder?" I shook my head sadly. "No, Jack, she's my ex-wife. She'll be lucky to shuffle papers in a dark, windowless room if we pull this off. I regret not burning that bridge when I divorced her. I'm here to fix that mistake. Whether this takeover works or not, both she and Jason will be history. I guarantee it." Jack looked around the room and then back at the folder. "You know, Sam, I've been doing so much with so little for so long. Now I have the chance to do everything with nothing." He grinned widely. "What's the deadline for this miracle?" I looked at Kevin. "I need it by 3 p.m. tomorrow," he replied cautiously. "Holy crap," Jack exclaimed, eyes wide. "I'm fine, Kevin, but even God would struggle to sort this out by then." We all exchanged glances, and I started to worry that my plan might fail. Then Jack said something surprising. "If I pull this off, I want a sign on my desk that says, God," he joked. After a moment, Kevin grinned. "I'll personally engrave it, and everyone will kneel and pay their respects if you bring me those numbers by 3 p.m. tomorrow." We all sighed in relief. "Okay, folks, we're burning the midnight oil. Call whoever you need to and get to work." Megan asked if she could invite some of the girls from the typing group to help. "It's your choice, Megan. Show us what you can do. I'm here to help with any questions, but it's up to you now," I said, handing control to her. "Oh my God," she exclaimed, glaring at Kevin. "Sam's right, honey. Pull yourself together and show everyone they can rely on you in a crisis." Kevin and I stepped back as Megan took a deep breath and got to work. Within an hour, she was organizing groups and brainstorming ideas. Jack argued with her until she snapped. "I don't care how many people you need to bring in to meet the deadline, Jack. You know what we're up against, so just do it, okay?" Kevin chuckled. "I think you were right, Sam. She is a hard worker." I smiled at Kevin's pride in her. I lightly slapped his arm. "I never doubted it, Kevin." I tapped my temple in agreement and went to help. I walked into Jason's office, past his shocked secretary. "I'm sorry, sir, but you can't go in there." Jason waved her away in disgust. "It's okay, Lynn. What's this Beckman invasion about?" Clearly, Jason was upset to see me. "That's no way to start a negotiation, Jason. I'd think a man of your business acumen would know when to be a bit more contrite." I wore a menacing smile. Jason sat back, waiting. I knew in a battle of wills, the first to speak loses. Jason, sweating, finally interrupted. "Are you just going to stand there? Or are you going to tell me why you're here? I have a shareholders meeting in an hour." "I'm here to help you pack, idiot," I informed him. "And where am I supposed to go?" Jason clearly didn't like how this was going. "I don't care where you go as long as you're out of here by the end of the day," I said with a grin. "But I'd suggest moving to another state, maybe even the other side of the country." "What if I refuse to leave? I'm close to retirement and not giving up my lucrative package for someone like you." I shook my head. "You have 2 choices. Resign now and walk away with what you have, or stay and watch me dismantle your life, including your family. You'll be lucky to afford a cup of coffee." Jason frowned. I did what you wanted. I made Amy vice president, and she now controls JPL. Why the threats? We've never met, but I thought you kept your word. What changed your mind? Are you coming after me because of the past? I leaned forward, placing both hands on his desk, our faces inches apart. You changed my mind. I was holding up my end until you broke it. Now you pay. You screwed Amy over and let her present a doomed proposal to the board. You saw a chance to kill two birds with one stone, knowing she'd turn to me for help, and you knew I wouldn't. You broke our agreement, and now I demand payment. Sweat trickled down Jason's face as he listened, realizing everything I said was true. I didn't break our deal, Beckman. She came to me. I only gave her a chance to prove herself. If she's in this position, it's her fault. Don't crap me, you lowlife, I said, sweeping items off his desk in anger. You could have stopped her. Even a fifth grader could see she had no chance without your help. It was your choice, and you made the wrong one. Now fix it. Resign or watch your life get destroyed. Jason's face showed a range of emotions, and I enjoyed watching him struggle. I doubt you have enough on me to follow through on your threats, he said. I smiled, watching him mentally hit dead ends. Do you think I've been idle? I have dirt on your affairs, corporate fraud, embezzlement, and more. Your choice, jail or retirement. I saw realization dawn in his eyes as he understood his only option was to leave. Kevin Paxton is talking to your board right now with a plan that will ruin you. When I leave here, I'm handing everything I have to them. That broke Jason. He pressed the intercom. Lynn, come in with a pad and pencil. I need to dictate a letter. I walked to his wine cabinet and poured a scotch. No need to hurry, Jason. You win. I'll be gone by the end of the day. As I sipped my drink, his secretary entered and sat to take dictation. No problem, Jason. I'll make sure to send your email. Lynette sensed the tension as she waited for Jason to start dictating. By the time he finished, she could barely contain her laughter and quickly left the office. Seeing her reaction, I knew Jason wouldn't have time to gather his belongings before leaving. As he exited his office for the last time, I called out, I hear the weather is nice at the South Pole this time of year. I won't be looking for you there. Have a good day, Jason. Lynette returned a few minutes later and hugged me. Thank you, Mr. Beckman. Thank you so much. I pulled back, confused. Why are you thanking me? Tears welled up in Lynette's eyes. Jason tried to blackmail me. He's been making advances, just hints so far, but I think he planned to push harder if I didn't comply. I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've done. I was furious that Jason had behaved this way. I knew Amy had served her time, and now Jason was targeting Lynette. I decided his fate was sealed, and his marriage was likely in jeopardy. If all goes well, he will just ask you to do your job well. He's a fair and honest man who values employee loyalty. Lynette kissed me on the cheek. You're on my Christmas list now, and I'll try to talk my husband into naming our next son after you, she grinned. Thanks again for your help. She handed me the envelope. Typing this letter was the most fun I've ever had. 6 months later, I walked into the same office Jason had left. Good morning, Lynn. Is the boss in? Good morning, Mr. Beckman. Yes, Mr. Paxton is expecting you. As I reached for the door, she added, Mr. Beckman, you were right. He's everything a secretary could want in a boss. Thanks again. I grinned as I opened the door. My pleasure, Lynn. And call me Sam. Mr. Beckman was my father. Lynette chuckled and waved. I asked, sinking into a chair, how does it feel to be CEO of one of the most profitable companies in the stock market? Sam, you old idiot. Where have you been? How are you? I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've done for everyone, especially Megan and me. She still pinches herself every morning to make sure it's not a dream. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? How do you know that? Are you waking up next to her? Is a mini merger planned? I joked. Kevin shrugged. We're in the negotiation stage, but a deal is likely soon. Megan would love to have you at the signing. And I hear you have a little filly you're nursing too. I laughed. Exactly. You had a business to save. I had one to build. Vivian is a fine thoroughbred. If I get the chance, I'll hitch my wagon to her. As our banter subsided, Kevin asked more seriously, have you heard about Amy? I grew solemn. Yes, Megan called when she was taken to the hospital. The stress was too much and she snapped. Megan asked if I would visit her, but I thought it would only make things worse until she gets professional help. Kevin nodded. Yeah, you're probably right. Megan feels a bit sorry for her. She might offer Amy an entry-level position at JPL, maybe as a secretary. I hope that doesn't offend you. I shook my head. No, I don't hate her. I don't even like her anymore. She's just someone I once knew. I hope she gets better and moves on. Kevin leaned back. So, No desire to come back? I could find you a good job with a great financial package. I grinned. Not a chance. Besides, you don't need me. From what I hear, you've got God working for you now. Kevin burst into laughter. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about Jack. He got his plaque and earned everyone's respect. You were right. He's a math genius. For a while, he was a hotshot. I'd walk into board meetings an hour before the shareholders meeting with his financial report in hand. Kevin giggled. What's so funny? I asked. I was just thinking about how Jack looked when the girls would sneak up on him. We'll see how socially awkward he is when he tries to figure out women with math formulas. If he succeeds, I'll believe he's a god. I laughed. I would have loved to see that and attend the board meeting, but I had other business. While you were grooming board members, poor Jason was sweating at the table you now occupy. Kevin smiled. If you ever need a job, let me know. I shook my head. I have what I want now. Vivian and I have opened our family resort. I'm here to offer you corporate rates for Thanksgiving weekend. You could have contests and promote team building. Kevin nodded. I think we can agree. Maybe a fishing contest or two will foster camaraderie. Vivian and I were invited to Kevin and Megan's wedding, and now they have 2 wonderful boys. They are still a formidable team in the business world. At Christmas, we get cards from Lynn and her family. She even talked her husband into naming their next child after me. Her name is Samantha, short for Sam. Jason hasn't been heard from since his wife dumped his clothes on the lawn and turned on the sprinklers. His Elvis autographed guitar became a necklace for his favorite garden gnome after Nancy dropped it on his head. I assume he's hunting penguins in Antarctica to keep warm, but that's just a rumor. And Amy, after getting the help she needed to recover from what Jason did to her, she accepted Megan's offer for an entry-level secretary job. She sold her luxurious mansion and bought a modest apartment within walking distance of work. She'll never be part of the elite business environment again, but she has her own home and will work until retirement. I talked to her at the corporate Thanksgiving party at the lake. She was hesitant to come until Megan convinced her to unwind. We chatted and she apologized for her arrogance, admitting she was out of line. I also apologized for jeopardizing her safety, but it was necessary to save everyone else's jobs. After therapy, she realized how flawed her thinking had been. She even laughed when I told her about Jason's downfall. She had a relaxing weekend, mostly sunbathing with coworkers. I don't know much about her social life, but Megan mentioned she occasionally dates but rarely stays in a relationship for long. Honestly, I don't have time to think about it. It's her life, and she has to live with it. 6 months later, Vivian and I got married and moved her and Bessie into my cottage. I watched as she took out a picture of her late husband, Greg, from her suitcase, kissed it, and placed it in a drawer. Touched, I walked over, pulled out a picture of Glory, and placed it on her dressing table. Greg deserves to see his wife happy, well-groomed, and loved, don't you think? Vivian smiled tearfully and hugged me. You're a good man, Samuel. I think Greg and you would have been great friends. My guardian angel has been looking out for me, and now I have 2 soulmates. I felt splendid, better than I had in years. When Bessie is old enough, you'll have to tell her all about her father. They both deserve that. Our fishing resort is growing steadily. Jillian now has an apartment attached to the store, so we always know where to find her. We've added more cabins with docks for weekend fishing enthusiasts. I spend most days in my workshop doing boat repairs and general maintenance. Vivian runs the store, and Bessie, now 5, is always underfoot. I've become a father figure to her, the only one she's ever known. Last summer, we surprised her with a little brother, Brady, who has temporarily relieved her of some of our attention. I fuss over both of them, and even my doctor is pleased. Maybe I should send Amy a thank you card. Just kidding. I vividly remember meeting Julie for the first time on a rainy afternoon, just as I started a new job at her company. She was kind, funny, and her energy lit up every room. We quickly became inseparable and soon fell in love. Our wedding was small, just close friends and family, exactly how Julie wanted it. And it was perfect. Those were the happiest days of my life. But life can be cruel. Julie's sudden end of life in an accident devastated me, leaving me lost and heartbroken. It took years to heal. And just when I thought I'd never love again, I met Rachel. She brought joy back into my life, and I began to move forward. Still, moving on was anything but easy. Now, preparing for my second marriage, I can't help but reflect on how simple my wedding to Julie was. This time, Rachel wanted a big, extravagant event. The details, like color-matching napkins and flower arrangements, were endless and exhausting, though I had little say. My mother-in-law, Rachel, and her friend Amber made the decisions, while my suggestions, inspired by my wedding with Julie, were ignored. I once told Rachel, "Yes, I love Julie deeply, and losing her was unbearable. But that doesn't mean I should forget her or pretend she never existed." Rachel knew my past, and Julie would always be a part of me. Despite the chaos of wedding planning, everything seemed settled, except for minor details, like the color of the umbrella in case of rain or the car to take us from the church. At this point, the only things left unresolved seemed to be out of our control. I stayed silent about it, though. Everyone seemed happy with the wedding preparations, but I felt the need to reconnect with Rachel, who had grown distant. I figured it was the stress of the upcoming wedding. Rachel had always known about my past with Julie, and had helped me through my darkest times. She pulled me out of depression and back into life. She was even patient when I accidentally called her Julie during physical moments, though that happened less over time. I grew to love Rachel deeply, maybe as much as I had loved Julie. However, Rachel was sensitive when I suggested she dress like Julie, and she didn't want me to remove Julie's pictures from my home after she moved in. We also clashed over keeping some of Julie's things versus Rachel's desire to redecorate. It was tough, but we worked through it and grew closer, eventually leading to my proposal. Rachel said yes, but after a long, unsettling pause. I had thought she would be excited, given how much she had pursued me. When she finally spoke, she said, "Yes, Alex, I want to marry you, but what?" I asked, accidentally calling her Julie again. She looked pained, and I quickly corrected myself, but the damage was done. "Alex, I know you've been through a lot, but I think you still love more than one woman," she said tearfully. I reassured her, promising that I loved only her. She cried, then accepted my proposal fully, but a shadow seemed to linger over us after that. It was hard to tell if it was because of the wedding stress or something deeper. To reconnect with Rachel, I planned a surprise wellness weekend. Her mood had been sour during the preparations, and I hoped the trip would help. I vowed not to mention Julie or any wedding details. When I told Rachel about the weekend, she smiled and kissed me, something that had become rare. "A romantic weekend? Oh, Alex, that's so sweet. Thank you," she said. Rachel seemed pleased, and I realized how tense I had been, fearing rejection. Luckily, the surprise hit the mark. "Oh, perfect. Just what we needed to fix things between us." "Yeah, the hotel's great. It has an amazing spa. Julie really loved the seafood restaurant here. You'll see, it'll be fantastic." Damn. I mentioned Julie again. I cursed myself, but Rachel just gave me a strange look. We arrived early, and despite the bad weather, everything was perfect. The hotel, the spa, and our room. I felt optimistic that this would help us reconnect. "This room is beautiful, Alex," Rachel said, looking around. "Yeah, once the weather clears, you can see the lake. It's really romantic," Alex replied. "Oh, how do you know?" Rachel asked, her tone curious. "I've stayed in this room before," Alex admitted. "Oh, you have?" she responded, a bit surprised. "Yeah, with Julie," Alex added, but stopped himself from saying more. "Oh." Rachel looked a bit stunned by the revelation. "You asked for this room," Alex reminded her, trying to ease the tension. "Yeah, I like it," Rachel replied, though her voice had lost some enthusiasm. "I see," Alex said, noticing her irritation. It frustrated him. Why did he have to deny his past with Julie? Rachel knew he loved her. Was it such a big deal to stay in the same room he had shared with his late wife? Shortly after they arrived, a snowstorm hit, and the front desk informed them they'd be stuck at the hotel for a few days. Alex didn't mind. It felt romantic, and he planned to enjoy time alone with Rachel, but she seemed less excited. "I just hope I can get back to work on time," Rachel said abruptly, which annoyed Alex. "Let's grab a bite to eat. The restaurant here is great," Alex suggested, trying to change the subject. They were seated at a nice table, one Alex had sat at before with Julie. "Let me guess, you sat here with Julie?" Rachel asked, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Yes, it has a nice view," Alex responded, trying to remain calm. "Maybe I should wear a wig," Rachel snapped. "A wig?" Alex repeated, confused. "Yeah, and dress like Julie," she said, her tone sharp. "Rachel, stop being ridiculous," Alex said, growing frustrated. "Alex, this has to stop," Rachel insisted, her voice firm. "You knew about my past from the start," Alex countered. "Yes, but I'm not going to relive your life with her. I want to make new memories, not live in Julie's shadow, Rachel said, her frustration clear. Rachel, Julie is part of who I am, Alex explained, trying to make her understand. So I have to share you with her for the rest of my life? Rachel asked, her anger rising. That's not what I mean, Alex started to say. Well, I guess I'll have to deal with it. But if sharing is the deal, you'd better learn something about it too, Rachel shot back, her voice full of anger. I could tell Rachel was struggling with the situation, and I should have been more diplomatic, but it was a sore spot for me too. Before I could say anything, she left the table. I decided to follow her to the buffet, intending to talk and reassure her. She was already in line, chatting with a tall, handsome guy who was clearly interested. They laughed, touched hands, and looked like a couple. I don't usually get jealous, but this was unsettling. They filled each other's plates, giggling like teens, and then sat at a small table for two. I felt a rush of unease, but joined them anyway. Hi, I'm Alex, Rachel's fiancé. I introduced myself, extending a hand. The guy ignored me completely, which hurt. Rachel giggled, clearly trying to get under my skin. Rachel, what's going on? I asked, annoyed. She and the guy, Danny, kept talking and laughing while I sat there, humiliated. Rachel didn't mention me or our wedding, and I grew more frustrated as they bonded over work and family. You're an amazing woman, Rachel. I'm glad we met, Danny said. And I can't believe you're here alone, Danny. I'm glad we're snowed in. It's going to be great, Rachel replied, flirting openly. Rachel, I shouted, but she ignored me. Then she leaned over and kissed him, leaving me stunned. The entire restaurant gasped. I felt utterly humiliated. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I was furious. Rachel continued playing this cruel game, and when she suggested going to his room, Danny looked surprised but willing. They left together, leaving me alone and humiliated. I returned to our room, too stunned to think straight. Hours passed, and I couldn't shake my anger, hurt, and doubts about the marriage. Eventually, I asked the front desk for Danny's room number. They couldn't tell me directly, but hinted it was 107. I went outside, found their room, and saw them cozy on the couch. At least they were fully clothed. I took a picture. They spotted me, waved, and kissed again, clearly mocking me. I took another photo and left, unable to watch any longer. I was crushed, questioning everything about our relationship. Later that night, I saw them in the restaurant, acting like a couple, hugging, kissing, enjoying themselves. I took more pictures, then ordered room service to avoid further humiliation. I waited for Rachel to return and make things right, but she never did. Around 10 p.m., I went back to check their room. The curtains were mostly closed, but I could still see through the gaps. They were kissing again, and then things escalated. I kept taking photos, trying to stay calm, even though it was unbearable. Finally, when they finished and cuddled on the couch, I left, freezing and heartbroken. I went back to our room, cried, pounded the bed in frustration, uploaded the photos to my cloud, and finally fell asleep after taking some sleeping pills. I woke up around 9, with Rachel sitting in a chair, watching me quietly. Neither of us said a word. I wasn't angry anymore, just sad. Thoughts of what could have been ran through my mind. She didn't even look remorseful, just content, as if unaware or indifferent to the impact of her actions. Maybe this had been her plan all along. Are you feeling better now? She asked. No. I'm going to spend the day with Danny until we leave. My stuff is already in his room. After that, I'll be yours again. Unless you mention Julie, she said calmly. No, I replied in the same tone. Enjoy yourself. She left without another word. I couldn't believe how arrogant she'd become. Maybe I had misjudged her all along. She didn't want to end the relationship, just teach me a lesson. Sure, I'd been careless mentioning Julie, but her reaction was extreme. It was over between us. Stuck at the hotel, I felt trapped and humiliated, desperately wanting to escape. My mind kept spiraling, and I knew I needed a distraction. As I headed for breakfast, Michael from the front desk stopped me. You don't have to stay here. The roads will open for a short time today. Follow the supply truck, and you'll be able to leave before the next storm hits. Thank you, Michael. I meant it, and tipped him generously. The idea of escape lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. I packed up, checked out, and followed the delivery truck to the highway with no issues. The drive home was long, and I struggled to process everything that had happened. One thing was clear. There would be no wedding. I canceled everything, the venue, the caterer, the DJ, and sent out simple wedding cancellation notices. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we regret to inform you that our wedding has been canceled. I didn't feel the need to air the dirty details. I also reached out to the San Francisco company I'd turned down because of Rachel. They welcomed me back, saying, "Come here, Alex. We'll find you a place and the job is still yours. Sounds like your ex did you a favor." I wasn't ready to laugh about it yet, but I was relieved. If this had happened 6 months into marriage, it would have been much worse. The pain of losing someone I loved was real, but her betrayal made moving on easier. A whole new life was ahead of me, and for the first time, I felt like I truly dodged a bullet. I quit my job, packed my car, and left our apartment. On a whim, I even peed in her underwear drawer, though it didn't feel good afterward. Just a childish act to show my frustration. The drive to San Francisco would take 4 or 5 days, and I looked forward to the solitude and time to reflect. After 2 days of anger and resentment, my phone rang as I started my trip. "Alex, it's Rachel. Thank God the roads are clearing," Rachel said. Alex regretted answering. All the anger surged back, and he stayed silent. "Alex, are you there?" Rachel asked, her voice tense. "Yes," Alex replied flatly. "Did you cancel the wedding?" "My parents called," Rachel said, her tone anxious. "Yes, of course. What did you expect? That I'd still marry you?" Alex responded, his frustration evident. "Alex, please. I was just hurt about the Julie thing and made a mistake. I'm yours now. Nothing has to change," Rachel pleaded. "Maybe, but that person won't be me," Alex said coldly. "What?" Rachel asked, shocked. "I don't care how you justify it. We're done," Alex stated firmly. "Alex, please come get me. We need to talk," Rachel begged, her voice breaking. "No, I'm not your responsibility anymore, and I'm not in the neighborhood," Alex replied dismissively. "Where are you?" Rachel asked, desperate. "Kearney, Nebraska. I'm heading to California, starting a new life without you," Alex said, his voice resolute. Rachel began to sob, but Alex hung up. When the phone rang again, he blocked her number. He resumed his journey, though the anger still lingered. An hour later, the phone rang again. "Alex speaking?" Alex answered, sounding tired. "Hey, Alex, it's Carl, Rachel's father. Did you cancel the wedding?" Carl asked, his tone concerned. "Yeah, or, more accurately, Rachel did with her behavior," Alex replied. "What happened?" Carl asked. "She flirted with a guy right in front of me, kissed him, went to his room, and spent the weekend with him. The whole hotel knew," Alex explained, his voice tinged with bitterness. Carl was silent for a moment. "I'm sorry, Alex, you're right. She's not ready for marriage. I apologize on her behalf," Carl said regretfully. "No hard feelings, Carl. I always liked you and Sue," Alex replied, softening his tone. "What will you do now?" Carl asked. "I'm heading to San Francisco to start fresh," Alex said. "Good luck, Alex. You're a good man," Carl said sincerely. "Thanks, Carl. Goodbye," Alex replied, ending the conversation. That call hurt. My future had fallen apart in just days. Friends called during the drive, and though I didn't share details, most seemed to understand the breakup. Eventually, the calls stopped, and I focused on starting my new life. But it wasn't easy. My thoughts kept drifting back to Rachel, the good times, and that awful weekend. After 2 months in San Francisco, my doorbell rang one Friday evening. Expecting Jehovah's Witnesses, I reluctantly opened it, but it was worse. Rachel, looking beautiful and nervous. I immediately slammed the door. She rang again, but I turned off the doorbell. How did she find me? I knew I couldn't avoid her forever, so I reopened the door, but she was gone. Good. The next morning, the doorbell rang again. Still groggy, I opened it, and there she was. I let her in without a word, resigned to the inevitable conversation. We sat in silence, sipping coffee. She had clearly made an effort to look exactly how I liked, but my feelings for her were gone. This realization made me calm. "Alex," she whispered, struggling to speak. "I'm sorry." I stayed quiet, letting her talk. "I've been awful, and I'm sorry it took so long to find you. You can mention Julie whenever. It's something I'll just have to live with. I was insecure and thought you didn't really love me, that I was just a substitute. You kept pictures of her everywhere. You called me Julie sometimes, and she was always in your mind during wedding planning. Taking me to that spa where you'd been with her, it was too much. I snapped, and I'm sorry." I nodded, understanding. I should have been more sensitive, but that doesn't justify humiliating me and cheating on me. "I know," she said, tearing up. "I've regretted it every day." We sat in silence, unsure of what to do next. "How did you find me?" I asked. "All our friends know your address, but none wanted to tell me. I tricked someone by borrowing their phone," she admitted. "I was glad my friends had my back." I gave up our apartment and my job. I rented a place nearby and am looking for work. I was surprised by what Rachel said, but it didn't change anything for me. Her news didn't make me happy. It just meant she'd be around, making things harder. Still, I felt strong enough to resist her. Alex, I know I hurt you at the hotel. I did it on purpose and humiliated you in public. I pushed you away and you had no choice but to leave. At first, I didn't understand why I did it. I loved you then, and I still do. I didn't care about Danny. He was attractive, but I didn't even like him. I tried to convince myself it was about teaching you a lesson, but deep down, I knew I just wanted to hurt you. So, what was the real reason? Alex asked, his voice calm but probing. My dad thinks I was just jealous, Rachel admitted softly. Jealous of a dead woman? Alex asked, incredulous. You always talked about Julie like she was perfect, the most beautiful, flawless woman. I felt like I couldn't compete with her. I was so intimidated by her memory that I didn't even want to accept your proposal, even though it was my dream, Rachel confessed, her voice cracking. Rachel, I'm sorry for making you feel that way, Alex said, guilt creeping into his voice. Julie wasn't perfect, and we had our arguments, but I didn't think it was right to mention those after she died. I shouldn't have put her on a pedestal in front of you. Oh, Alex, Rachel sobbed and lunged toward him, seeking comfort. Wait, Alex stopped her gently. I said you could compete with her in the past, but now my view of you is tainted. Alex, she whispered through her tears, give me a chance to prove you wrong. I'll be patient. I'll stay by your side until you trust me again. You can still talk about Julie, and I'll learn to live with it. I don't know. It's not that simple, Alex replied, shaking his head. I'll do whatever it takes, no matter how long, Rachel pleaded, her determination growing. Quite the speech, Rachel. I believe you, Alex said calmly, though his neutral tone confused her. How do you feel about me? She asked, almost in a whisper. I still love you. I haven't been with anyone since that night. I think I've mostly forgotten you, though. I'm not mad anymore, Alex admitted. But I also don't love you anymore. Rachel flinched at his words, but quickly regained her composure. That's bad, but I can work with it. You loved me once. Maybe you'll fall in love with me again. Rachel, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. Your reaction was completely out of proportion. What's next if I forget to take out the trash? Hire a hitman? Trust isn't even a goal for me right now. I swear I'll never be that stupid again. If we get back together, I'll sign a contract. If you leave me, I get nothing. No money, no kids, nothing. Kids? I laughed, surprised. Yes, if we ever get back together. Here's the contract, she said, handing me a document. I was shocked to see how harsh it was. If we broke up, she'd get nothing, not even visitation rights. I doubted it was even legal. Did Carl help you write this? Alex asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, is it that obvious? Rachel admitted, a bit embarrassed. Well, I don't want to be with you because of a contract. And the real issue remains. I don't love you anymore. I don't trust you. I'm not even sure I like you, Alex replied, his tone firm. That last comment seemed to sting. I don't even like myself, Rachel admitted softly. I get that. You hurt me deeply for no reason, Alex said, shaking his head. Alex, how about this? Show me around San Francisco. We can just be friends and you can see how things go, Rachel suggested, trying to find a middle ground. Alex paused, considering her offer. He wondered if avoiding Rachel would feel like running away, and that would seem weak. The truth was, he still liked her, even if he didn't trust her, and he didn't want to hide. Plus, he had no friends in San Francisco, so her company might be welcome. Spending time with her would prove to him that he was over her. I don't know the city that well either, but I can show you what I know, Alex replied finally. Thanks, Alex, Rachel said, smiling as she headed to the kitchen to make breakfast, humming confidently. Alex didn't mind her being around, but he knew there was no chance of them getting back together, contract or no contract. Over the next few weeks, Rachel eagerly sought time with Alex, often wearing revealing outfits and finding excuses to touch him. Once, while wearing a loose t-shirt, she kept leaning forward, practically offering a view of her cleavage, but Alex wasn't interested. He looked everywhere but at her chest, smiling inwardly as she tried harder to catch his attention. Eventually, he left the room to stop himself from laughing. Another time, she wore hot pants so short they resembled a bikini bottom, pairing them with stiletto heels. She spent the day bending over in front of him, pretending to look for something. "Rachel, are you looking for something? Can I help?" Alex asked, raising an eyebrow. "No, I'm fine. Just thought I lost an earring," she replied, clearly frustrated. When they went shopping together, Rachel found every excuse to press her body against Alex, but he pretended not to notice, enjoying the irony of her frustration. She was clearly hot for him, but he kept rejecting her advances, probably hurting her ego. Alex felt a little sorry for her, but he wasn't going to sleep with her just to make her feel better. She was trying to win him back in cheap ways, and it wasn't working. Weeks later, they sat in Alex's living room, and Rachel's advances had slowed down. Suddenly, she asked bluntly, "Alex, when are you going to entertain me again?" "What?" Alex asked, caught off guard by her directness, though he knew exactly what she meant. "You know you can have me, right? Just for fun, no strings attached." "I'm on the pill, clean and free," Rachel said, her voice suggestive. I didn't know how to let her down gently. She was beautiful, but she was still Rachel, the same Rachel who had told me, "It's already decided. Try to have a good time." While I was lost in thought, she pulled off her sweater, revealing a t-shirt underneath with big text saying, "Alex's girlfriend." She turned around to show the same words on the back. "Nice, huh?" she said, smiling. "Yes," I replied, still shocked. "I bought 20 of these. I plan to wear them everywhere. I know it's not true yet, but I want to show my commitment. However, I need your approval to wear them in public." Her eyes sparkled with hope, waiting for me to agree. I shook my head. "That's impossible. Let's just be friends, okay?" Her face fell, and her eyes watered, but she stayed strong. "Okay, Alex, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to push. I'm surprised I can even spend time with you again, but that's all I'm willing to do." "I understand," she said, looking utterly disappointed. "Alex, I have time. I have no other plans. I'll keep working to get you back. I'll be patient. You can even glorify Julie if you want. I'll learn to live with it." I sighed, unsure how to respond. I didn't want to hurt Rachel or seek revenge, but I also didn't want her holding on to false hope. Still, she kept hanging around, clearly wanting more, though she didn't push too hard. Her hopes were high, but I remained determined not to start a real relationship with her. I told her as much, but it didn't stop her efforts. One night I got home late and was frustrated the light was out again. Stumbling in the dark, I accidentally kicked something soft. I used my phone's flashlight and saw a small woman curled up on the floor. Confused, I carried her inside. She was dirty but seemed healthy, so I put her in the guest room, covered her with blankets, and went to bed. I woke up unexpectedly in the middle of the night, not because of my alarm, but because of something pleasant. I should have told her to stop, but all I managed was a weak, yeah. We had sex, and before I knew it, she disappeared back into the guest room. It was over as quickly as it started, leaving me wondering if it had even happened. The next morning, I heard her humming in the shower. She was thin but had a pretty face and seemed relaxed while eating breakfast. We didn't talk about the night before. After eating, she got dressed, said, "You're a nice guy," and left without a trace. I was stunned. I had just slept with a woman whose name I didn't even know. Then when I found a needle in the trash, a chill ran down my spine. Panic set in as I realized we hadn't used protection. I immediately went to the doctor, who told me I didn't have any detectable STDs but needed to wait for some results. I swore I'd think before acting next time. Meanwhile, Rachel continued pushing for more, but I couldn't see myself being with her again. I still found her attractive, but the love I once felt was gone. She wisely kept her marriage and kids' talk to a minimum, knowing too much pressure would push me away. We spent time together as friends, and while she hoped for more, I knew it was never going to happen. Months later, Rachel and I were about to have dinner when the doorbell rang. She jumped up to answer it, always eager to assert herself as if she were still my partner. I let her, realizing I'd been keeping her around for companionship while never fully clarifying that we wouldn't get back together. Despite her beauty and the fact she could be with someone else, she remained determined to win me over. When the door opened, I turned to see the woman I'd met months earlier standing there, still thin, except for her noticeably large stomach. Rachel looked surprised but quickly understood the implications of the woman's visit and her condition. "Please come in," Rachel said quietly. "Join us for dinner. I'm Rachel." "Annie," the woman mumbled, uninterested in pleasantries. Annie sat down without hesitation and began eating. "I'm pregnant," she said bluntly, confirming what we had guessed. "It's yours," she added, pointing her fork at me. I stared at the steak on her fork, trying to process it. You're the only one I've had unprotected sex with, she continued, as if discussing the weather. I was too shocked to respond. Rachel, however, stayed calm. Really? The only one? I muttered, still in disbelief. That's hard to believe. Nevertheless, it's true, Annie replied, unfazed. Don't worry. I want to work things out. I like you, and I don't want trouble. Funny thing is, I don't even know your name. I'm Alex, I said weakly. Nice to meet you. It was fun having sex with you, she grinned. Rachel even chuckled a bit. Alex, you slept with her without knowing her name? Rachel asked, surprisingly calm. Yeah, I guess so. So, what now? Do you want infanticide? Rachel asked. No, it's too late. I've seen the ultrasounds. It's a baby now, and I can't end her life, Annie replied, her tone more serious. Rachel didn't miss a beat. No problem. We'll adopt her. What? I dropped my fork, completely shocked. Rachel turned to me. Shut up, Alex. This is a woman's matter. This could have been my baby if I hadn't messed up. I tried to speak, but Rachel was already making decisions. Annie nodded, agreeing with Rachel's plan. You can't raise a child while using pills, Rachel said firmly. Annie hesitated, then admitted, You're right. I've been on hard substances for a while, and I'm not sure I can stop, even for my baby. My life is a mess. The mood turned somber. Rachel remained composed. Keeping you off pills is Alex's job. You'll live here, stay clean, and I'll adopt the baby. After that, you're free. Annie thought for a moment, then agreed. Okay, deal. Rachel extended her hand, and Annie shook it. Just like that, my fate was sealed. I got up and cleared the dishes while the two women made plans for my life. Annie was set to stay in the guest room, and Rachel began staying over more frequently. Though Rachel hinted we'd be a couple again, I stayed quiet, grateful for her help, but uneasy with how things were unfolding. The next morning, we moved Annie's things from her old place to my apartment. Her previous place was so bad I wouldn't have parked my car there. Wow, your life's been rough, huh? Alex asked while packing. Yeah, and it's about to get worse, she replied with a smirk. Hey, I'm not that bad, Alex joked, trying to lighten the mood. Ever heard of cold turkey? She asked, her tone turning serious. Not the food, right? Alex quipped. Nope, get your guest room ready. There'll be vomit and it'll be hell, she said bluntly. Well, hopefully my daughter will appreciate it someday, she added with an ironic smile. Our daughter, Alex corrected, surprising even himself with the words. Really? She asked, tears filling her eyes. Our daughter, Alex repeated firmly. You're not alone. Oh, Alex, thank you. She hugged him tightly, though Alex noticed her glancing warily at Rachel. Later she asked, Do you have vacation left? I can take 2 weeks unpaid, Alex responded. The first 3 days will be the worst, she warned. What should I expect? Alex asked, preparing himself. All the good stuff, she said sarcastically. Vomiting, sweating, shaking, screaming at you, trying to escape. I'll hate you. Got it, Alex said, resigned to what was coming. And that's exactly what happened. Twice she nearly escaped while I cleaned her bathroom. I ended up with scrapes and bruises and the room was wrecked. She screamed a lot, but we survived the first 3 days. By then, I was familiar with all her bodily functions, and none of it was remotely pleasant. I sat by her bed, exhausted, looking at the trembling, vomit-covered mess. I didn't feel noble, just tired and dirty, helping a woman I'd carelessly impregnated. The whole thing was awkward, gross, and depressing, and I barely noticed the smell of vomit anymore. Her erratic sleep schedule left me equally sleep-deprived. A few hours later, she was up and pacing. The worst is over. I need to be alone now. I'll take a walk. Anna, you can't leave yet. 2 weeks, then you're free. Let me go, she screamed. No, Anna. She shifted to pleading. Please, I need something to ease the pain. Let's get something to eat, I suggested, trying to calm her. Okay, she said, but suddenly made a run for the door. Luckily, she couldn't open it. It pushed instead of pulled. After that, I remembered to lock it, just to be safe. A few days later, she looked much better. Her eyes were clear again, and she seemed to have regained her composure. She was also sweating and shivering less, though she was still too thin. Now that her hair wasn't piled up and her skin wasn't so shiny, she was looking quite beautiful again. The worrying part was her attachment and emotional instability, which made me a bit uneasy. I couldn't tell if it was due to the pregnancy or the withdrawal, but she suddenly started touching me constantly, hugging and kissing me. That is, when she wasn't sitting in the corner crying or laughing. I couldn't fully avoid her emotional swings. When she was sad, it hurt me. When she was goofy, I usually joined in. When she was clingy, I enjoyed the closeness of this pretty woman, and when she was suddenly turned on, you can guess what happened. Suddenly, we were back in bed together, having sex again. It was intense, full of need and desire. I hadn't realized how much I wanted this little woman until now, but I really, really needed to have her, and I was sure she felt the same. It seemed like her withdrawal with all the vomiting, shaking, screaming, and yelling had somehow bonded us. I was still aware I was having unprotected sex with a courtesan again, despite my promise not to be that stupid anymore. But at least she couldn't get pregnant again. And surprisingly, I never felt like I was with a hooker. She was actually pretty shy and even cried a little afterward, clinging to me like a burr. I didn't mind, not one bit. We sat on the bed afterward, me feeling satisfied and still a little surprised. "So I guess you don't hate me as much anymore, huh?" I asked. "Don't be so sure, mister. That was still my bad side. Wait until you see me at my best." "No, really. I think I've beaten my demons now, and I'm starting to think straight again." "No, I never hated you. You were just trying to help me and our baby, and I'm grateful for that." She smiled cheekily. She was very charming, and she was getting prettier every time. If this kept up, I'd have to fight guys off with a stick. Wait, what? Why do I feel like I need to protect her? Did I really think she was my woman? I decided to deal with this problem with a proven tactic, procrastination. In the weeks that followed, the Spencer family seemed very relaxed. Annie and I got to know each other surprisingly well. Being sick and getting yelled at seemed to have created a strong bond between us. It helped that I was no longer stuck in the role of prison warden. We grew closer every day, laughing a lot and having sex. I even noticed a few glances in my direction that might have been longing. Yeah, honestly, I was starting to look at her the same way. Of course, Rachel still visited us regularly, and she didn't miss the changes. "Alex, you two aren't developing some kind of love relationship, are you?" she asked. "I'm not sure, Rachel. We're definitely getting closer." She looked completely shocked. "Alex, don't do this to me. I feel like I'm so close to getting you back. Don't let me lose you to that fool, okay? Rachel, you know that." Yes, I know. I'm not asking for anything. You can do whatever you want, but you know I still haven't given up hope. Alex, I'm going to keep fighting for you. I won't give up, even if it takes decades." I just sighed and let the matter drop because Annie had walked into the room. I knew Rachel was struggling, but I was starting to see Annie as my girlfriend now. And I'm definitely a one-woman man. Annie and I grew even closer as I made sure she stayed away from pills, went with her to checkups, bought tons of baby supplies, and did everything else parents do to prepare for a new baby. We acted like a normal couple, and that's exactly how it felt to me. After our daughter Mel was born, everything became clearer. Annie, Mel, and I were a family, no question about it. The idea of giving Mel up for adoption now seemed absurd. Of course, we were going to keep her. Rachel noticed all of this during her frequent visits. "Alex, I've lost you forever, haven't I?" she asked. "Yes, Rachel. What we had is over." "Alex, please," she sobbed. "This isn't fair. I know I completely screwed up that weekend, but I did everything I could to make things right. Doesn't that count for something?" "I don't know if it's fair. I belonged to you exclusively, but you were the one who separated us for no good reason. That meant we were both free to be with someone else, and that's what happened. It's not about fairness, and it wasn't intentional. There's no set price for what you did that weekend. You threw a bomb between us, and you never know which direction will be blown. In my case, it led me to Annie." "Alex!" She was openly sobbing now. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her. "Rachel, you're still young and beautiful. Go find the right man, and don't do anything like that again, okay?" "No, Alex. I'll wait for you." "No, don't." There was nothing I could do. I sighed. She was right. If she had chosen to throw her life away, that was tragic. But I couldn't stop her. That's how things ended with Rachel. It was sad because I once loved her, and things could have been great. But I didn't love her anymore. And she didn't love me either. I was starting to fall for Anna. No, actually, I was already completely in love with her. Her awkward, innocent, and charming ways, her sweet face, and her complete devotion to me. She practically worshipped me. The biggest difference with Rachel was that I actually trusted Anna, which was strange. I trusted a former pill dependent and courtesan, but couldn't bring myself to trust my ex-wife, who had only been wild for one weekend. The next few years brought us a small civil wedding, raising Mel, Rachel's disappearance, thankfully, and no recurring pill issues. Life with Anna wasn't always easy, of course. She still had major mood swings, but by then, I knew her well enough to handle it. The deep love we had for each other helped too. Mel was amazing. She had me wrapped around her little finger. Everything fell apart shortly after Mel's second birthday. I just put Mel to bed while Anna was still out shopping. Mel had worn me out again, and I collapsed on the couch, ready to zone out in front of the TV like usual. The doorbell rang the moment I sat down. Annoyed, I got up and opened the door. 2 policemen stood there. "Good evening. How can I help you?" "Good evening, Mr. Spencer. I'm Sergeant Jacobs. Are you married to Anna Spencer?" "Yeah. What's wrong?" I asked, suddenly feeling anxious. "Mr. Spencer, I am very sorry to inform you that we found your wife dead. Would you please come with us?" I didn't understand the rest. I collapsed. I'd kissed her goodbye just 2 hours ago. Was that the last time Mel or I would ever see her alive? Was she really never coming back? Would I never hear her laugh again? Never kiss her? Never hear her curse when she stepped on my foot? Never feel her snuggle into me? Never smell her scent again? "Annie, where are you? What happened? Why?" After who knows how long, a policeman shook me. "Mr. Spencer, are you all right? Should we call an ambulance?" No, I'm fine." It turned out she had died of a massive hard substances overdose. I had no idea she was still using. One of the officers casually mentioned he knew her, said she worked part-time as a courtesan and was too experienced with pills to make such a fatal mistake. They were sure she had eliminated herself. I was stunned. I didn't know. I barely knew her. She had been living a double life. Within days, I was shattered, unable to work, struggling to take care of Mel. A week after her end of life, I sat on the couch again, staring blankly at the TV, crying occasionally, feeling lost and incapable of handling the situation, emotionally and practically. Mel was crying again, which had become normal. Losing Annie devastated me and created a host of practical problems. My time off was almost over, and I needed to return to work. How was I going to take care of Mel? I had no family nearby and no one to rely on. Could I hire a babysitter? Could I trust anyone? Most of the people I'd trusted had deceived me in some way. Yeah, even Anna. Thinking back, she loved me, but she also deceived me. She lived a double life as a courtesan and pill dependent while I was at work or away on business. And now she had left me and Mel without a word or explanation. Ding dong. The doorbell rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. It had been ringing for a while. Mel was still crying. I felt completely overwhelmed. By Anna's end of life, by Mel's constant crying, by the weight of everything. I had tried to feed her and failed again, and I couldn't rock her to sleep. I felt helpless. Ding dong. The door or Mel? I had no idea what to do with Mel, but the door gave me a clear task. I could walk over, open it, and see who was there. So I did, and instantly regretted it. "No, please, no more complications. My life's hard enough as it is," I muttered. It was Rachel. "No," was all I managed to say. "You look awful." "I'm so sorry, Alex. It must have been terrible," she said softly, stepping in and hugging me. Strangely, I felt nothing. After 2 years apart, this was the woman I almost married. Yet I felt nothing. Shouldn't I feel something? Anger, sadness, anything? But there was only awkward indifference. Or maybe I was just too exhausted. She didn't seem to notice. Finally, she let go and carried the large bag she had with her into Mel's room. "Hey," I weakly protested, but followed her into the room, too exhausted to resist. She picked up Mel from the bed, gently rocked her, and hummed a quiet tune. Amazingly, Mel started calming down. After a while, she seemed completely content, which astonished me. Rachel carefully laid her back in bed, covered her up, and then walked straight into the kitchen as if she lived here, unloading her bags and preparing food for Mel. "How did you—" I started. "I've read all about it." "What? When?" "When I heard about Anna's end of life. I knew right away that you'd be in trouble, Alex," she said matter-of-factly, though I noticed her stealing quick glances in my direction, betraying her calm exterior. "Do you still live in the neighborhood?" "Of course. I never moved. And no, I'm not dating anyone. Yes, I've been watching you. No, I haven't had a man since that weekend when I ruined my life." She turned to face me, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, I still love you," she whispered, and then quickly left the room. I followed her to Mel's room and watched as she rocked and fed her. Damn, why wasn't Mel crying? Usually when I tried, the entire neighborhood needed earplugs. Rachel handled Mel effortlessly. She had come prepared. After a while, she turned to me again. "What's your plan, Alex?" "I'll take care of you," she continued before I could answer. "I'll always be here for you, always. I stayed in the background so I wouldn't interfere with your marriage. But now that you're struggling, I have to step in." That was quite a declaration. This woman had clearly made up her mind to dedicate her life to me, which was remarkable. Was it love or guilt? Could guilt drive someone to wait patiently for 2 years and then rush to help like this? What do you mean? Alex asked, feeling more confused than ever. I quit my job, she announced. You what? Alex replied, shocked. How else can I take care of you and Mel? You need a full-time nanny, and Mel needs me too, she said with a smile. To Alex's surprise, he found himself laughing for the first time in ages. She was right. Have you eaten anything? She asked, concerned. Since when? Alex responded. Since Anna's end of life, she said softly. I don't remember, Alex admitted. All right, Mel's fed. Now it's your turn. Just sit on the couch, she instructed. Alex did as she said, sitting down and realizing how grateful he was for her presence. Having someone to talk to, someone to fend off the loneliness and helplessness was a huge relief. He could hear her rattling pots and pans in the kitchen. After a while, she returned with a plate of food. Feeling better? She asked, handing him the plate. Yes, less lonely. And you're right. I do need help with Mel. Thank you. But what about your job? Alex asked, still processing everything. Alex, for 2 years, I haven't had a life. I haven't gone out or spent much. I've just stayed in my little apartment. The only thing I spent money on was the gym, she explained. You? The gym? Alex asked, surprised. Yes, I wanted to. Well, I'll explain later. She blushed a little. Anyway, I've saved up a lot. I can live for almost a year without working. We'll figure things out before then, she assured him. Oh, Alex said, feeling like he'd been thrown a lifeline, but unsure how to respond. Yes, I'll take care of you. In a year, you'll know what to do with your life. Maybe you'll meet someone new. Maybe you'll reconsider other options, she said with a small smile. Oh, I have to check on dinner. The meal was delicious, and Alex thanked her repeatedly. Afterward, he felt the urge to collapse into bed and sleep for a week. But she wasn't having it. Oh no, mister. You're not going to bed without a shower and brushing your teeth, okay? She teased. Yes, Mom, Alex joked, and she gave him a playful nudge in the ribs. She was right, though. His hygiene had been terrible lately. When I stepped out of the shower, I found my bed freshly made. It hit me that Anna had been the last one to make it, and the thought saddened me. As I climbed into bed under Rachel's benevolent smile, I couldn't stop thinking about Anna. Was our love real? Could you truly love someone you didn't fully know? She clearly hadn't trusted me enough to tell me everything. Soon after, I drifted into sleep, something I hadn't done peacefully since Anna's end of life. The next morning, I woke up to breakfast waiting on the nightstand. I was surprised I had slept through the night, something that hadn't happened since it all began. How had Rachel managed to keep Mel quiet? She wasn't just determined to help me. She was also quite capable of it. I ate breakfast, feeling a comfort that had escaped me for weeks. A little while later, Rachel entered the room humming happily, holding a sleeping Mel in her arms. She made it all seem so easy. Could a baby really adapt so quickly without her mother? One thing was for sure. I couldn't move on from Anna that easily. I was still grieving, still shocked by her end of life and the double life she had led. It hurt deeply, but I was thankful for Rachel's help, even if I didn't feel any special affection for her. Not yet. Feeling better? She asked, sitting beside me. Physically, yes, thanks to you. Emotionally, I'm still in shock. I don't understand how this all happened. Are you talking about Anna's end of life? She asked softly. About everything. Anna's end of life, the sudden change. I feel like I'm drifting. If you want me to move out, I will, Rachel said quietly. I don't want to impose. No, don't. You're helping me a lot. Please stay. She nodded, and I noticed a tear escape her eye. A few days later, I returned to work, confident Rachel could handle things. She was amazing with Mel, managing everything, including my emotional state, while giving me space when needed. She never tried to kiss me, but she'd hug me when I was down. Exactly what I needed at the time. Alex, I need to visit my parents this weekend. Can you manage a few days alone? She asked about 2 months after Anna's end of life. I realized I didn't want her to leave. It wasn't about practical reasons. I needed her presence, which confused me. Rachel smiled when she noticed, exclaiming, Yes, yes! She hugged me, and I realized I still loved her. The feeling had been buried under stress, but it was there. Rachel kissed me for the first time in years, and I hadn't realized how much I needed it. Everything felt good again, even if just for the moment. The sex that followed was a little awkward, but we didn't care. Afterward, Rachel promised, Just don't hurt me again. Never, Rachel. Never again, I assured her. We had both suffered, but it wasn't in vain. We had Mel, and I promised to be the best partner I could be. Good, Rachel said. You'll handle the weekend alone, but don't stay longer. From now on, this is our home, and we'll be a family. Life started to fall into place. Mel called Rachel Mommy, and we decided not to tell her the truth until she was older, if ever. We were happy as we were. One day, Rachel came to me and said, Alex, I love Mel like my own, but I want to carry your baby. I was so jealous of Annie. Then let's do it, I said without hesitation. Rachel became emotional, clearly surprised by my response. I didn't see a problem since we were already a family. Do you trust me enough to have a baby with me? I asked. Yes, she replied, pressing herself against me, sobbing softly. Thank you for asking, Rachel. I'd never trick you, she said, looking into my eyes. I know. So let's start, I replied. I just need to get off the pill, but we can start practicing right now, she smiled mischievously. And that's exactly what we did. Tonight, we finished a special meal. I insisted on cooking and went all out. Candles, a white tablecloth, and 3 courses. Rachel was pleasantly surprised, but I could tell she seemed a little nervous during dinner. I didn't usually do this kind of thing, and she was starting to suspect something. I needed to act quickly if I wanted to keep the surprise intact. I walked around the table and got down on one knee. Her jaw dropped like a stone as I fumbled in my pocket. Rachel? I said softly. Yes? She asked, wide-eyed. Would you? Yes, Alex, yes, of course, I'll marry you, she blurted out before I could finish, her joy overflowing. I went quiet, pulling her into a huge kiss as I fell back under her pregnant body. Thank you, Rachel, I said, still in awe of the moment. Are you kidding me? Thanking me? I should be thanking you. And I'll keep thanking you for the rest of my life, she said, her eyes glowing. And you know, we still have that contract, I teased. Yes, but I don't think I'll need it, she smiled. You won't, I reassured her. Oh, and Rachel, one more thing. It's about Mel, I began cautiously. She needs a mother. But she already has one, Rachel said, her tone softening. Yes, but not legally, I pointed out. Rachel looked at me, and to my surprise, tears filled her eyes. God, you'll be lucky today, she said through her sobs, and for the rest of your life. And I was. Now, back in the present, I'm lounging by the pool in the backyard, and my beautiful wife keeps casting longing glances my way while I play with our son. The wedding was small, just in time for my overjoyed father to witness it before he lost his battle with cancer. Before the wedding, I had waited for any sign of Rachel's old madness returning, but she knew exactly what I was thinking and just smiled. It's not happening, Alex. Not this time. I've learned my role, she said with quiet confidence. She was right. I just hope marriage turns out to be less complicated for others. I always knew the process would be tricky, but Rachel's and my version seemed a bit over the top. Dear readers, if you've actually made it through this story, it ends right here. What follows is an alternate ending for those who prefer quick resolutions. It makes no sense and doesn't relate to the story. I just assume these readers prefer simpler narratives. It's over, Rachel. I truly loved you, but you've completely destroyed all my feelings for you. No! She howled. Alex, I can fix this! Please give me another chance! I know how stupid I was, and it won't happen again! I've learned my lesson, and I love only you! It's too little. Too late, Rachel. And by the way, your lover Danny tried to confront me. Apparently, he had no idea about my Navy SEAL background. He's not a bad guy, Alex. Did you hurt him badly? Not too much, I guess. But he won't be doing much for a while. He didn't realize it was a covert intelligence op. I'm so sorry about how things turned out, Alex. And don't worry about the $15 million. It's safe in my Cayman offshore account. I know it looked bad when I tried to pill you for the cartel and they attempted to steal your Mustang, but it was never about the money. All I ever wanted was you. But you can't have him anymore, a woman's voice said from behind. Rachel spun around, shocked. And who are you? Rachel demanded. I'm Sasha, Alex's new fiancée, the woman replied, her voice cool and confident. She was a few years younger than Rachel and looked like a supermodel. And since I run an international private investigation firm, we already have all the evidence we need. If you're not careful, that video of your ménage à trois will end up on the internet. You're finished, Rachel. Alex and I are meant to be together. No, Rachel howled, her voice rising to the intensity of a jet engine. Yes, Sasha continued, unfazed. You had an honest man and you threw him away. Now he's mine, and I'm pregnant with his twins. Have a nice life, Rachel. I did love you, but we're done forever." At that moment, Rachel stood frozen, realizing how foolish she had been to treat Alex that way.
Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
At one point, comfortable was the perfect way to describe my life. There were no issues, no worries, no stress, just a deep sense of contentment that wrapped around me like a warm blanket. My life wasn't dull, far from it. As I neared 50, I eagerly anticipated the day I could retire and fully unwind without a single concern. But then, reality struck, and I realized that even during the best of times, you must navigate life with your eyes wide open. When Kathy and I celebrated our first anniversary at 23, we were still immersed in the honeymoon phase. Our sex life was thrilling and so frequent that I often wondered how we even found time for work. Fridays became our ritual. We'd stock up on food and drinks, creating a cozy, self-contained retreat in our apartment. Our playground was a king-size waterbed, where we spent countless hours, day and night, rarely getting much sleep. And let's just say, our neighbors probably knew us a little too well. Kathy was very vocal about her pleasure. Life wasn't just good, it was extraordinary. By our 5th anniversary, things still felt great. The passion was still there, though we had to adjust to the realities of parenthood. Our son, Alex, was born in the 3rd year of our marriage, and while living in a 1-bedroom apartment with a baby cramped our style, we made it work. We were still madly in love, and in many ways, Alex brought us even closer. We continued to make time for intimacy 5 nights a week, though as our careers advanced, life became a bit more complicated. Despite the changes and challenges, I believed our love could endure anything. I had no idea how much my once comfortable life was about to be turned upside down. By the time our 10th anniversary rolled around, changes seemed to come by leaps and bounds. Little Nancy came into our lives at year 7, and yes, she was planned. Gone was our 1-bedroom apartment, and was replaced with our first house at year 8. It was a fixer-upper, and like everyone, we had big plans to make it the house of our dreams. We just didn't realize it would be so much work and take so much time. Both of our careers had taken off, and between work and the kids, life wasn't as carefree as we would have liked. Thank God neither of us had to travel, or I don't know what we would have done. Life was a lot more difficult, but we were deeply in love, and that got us through the tough times. We may not have had the time to make love 24/7, but we took the time to connect whenever we could. By year 15, I barely had a chance to relax. There was soccer and baseball practice for Alex, and Kathy was deep into dance with Nancy. Evening meals together usually only happened on Saturdays and Sundays, but although we were all busy, we were happy. We both gained a few extra pounds by eating fast foods instead of good home-cooked meals, but they would eventually melt away when things settled down. But they never did. I was promoted to office manager, but along with the promotion came additional duties along with longer hours. I tried to impress my new boss and in the end, probably put in way too many hours that first year, and our home life suffered. I was doing this for us, and it would be worth it in the end, wouldn't it? Now, lovemaking had to be scheduled. Gone was the spontaneous sex of the past. We scheduled it for Tuesdays and Thursdays, and always date night on Saturday. Sometimes it worked, but most of the time it didn't. Life kind of got in the way. At 20 years, we moved into the house of Kathy's dreams. It has 4,000 square feet of living space and a kitchen to die for. This was what we'd worked so hard to achieve. But why wasn't I doing backflips? To me, it was way too big for just the 4 of us. It added another 25 minutes to my daily commute, not to mention a yard that would take me half of Saturday to mow. That first month, I thought we were on our honeymoon again. Kathy wanted to show her appreciation, and she did. Every night. I went to work tired most days, but with a smile on my face. In our new neighborhood, everyone knew everyone, and barbecues on the weekends happened at least 3 times a month. Kathy wanted to show off our new house, so it seemed always had people over. It was fun, but tiring all at the same time. We were now a member of suburbia and were living the good life, or thought we were. However, for the first time in our marriage, we argued. There never seemed to be enough money for everything Kathy wanted, not needed. And I wasn't happy about the frequency of our lovemaking. It was down to maybe twice a week at best. Most of the time we made love after coming home from one of the many neighborhood's barbecues. The only problem with that was that Kathy developed a taste for wine, and usually by the time we got home, she was either too looped or tried to do anything. "I'll make it up to you tomorrow," got old real fast, especially when tomorrow never came, thus the arguments. But we were still hopelessly in love, or so I thought. At 25 years, I mellowed out. I decided to let the small things go and not stress about them any longer, and believe it or not, it worked out pretty damn well. I let her run around like a chicken with her head cut off and just sat back and enjoyed life. I was now an upper-middle manager and found it a lot easier to supervise the work being done than actually doing it. My hours stabilized, and so went my stress. My boss was grooming me for a senior position, and per him it was mine unless I really screwed up. No chance of that. With Tim in his last year of college and Nancy headed for her first year, we were pretty much empty nesters. I'd put away enough over the years for their education, so my income never changed and maybe went up a bit. Kathy was still trying to keep up with the neighbors, but I'd given up years ago. When everyone booked a cruise the following summer, for the first time I said no. I'm not going. I see these people almost every week here at home. Why would I want to travel 1,500 miles just to see them on a Carnival ship? Kathy wasn't happy, and we had words. Fine, if you want to go, but I'm not. She worked on me for weeks, but I never wavered. Kathy thought about going herself, but in the end didn't. Something about being a fifth wheel. She wasn't happy and let me know in no uncertain terms. When we hadn't made love in almost 3 weeks, I finally said something. If you're trying to punish me, it won't work. And if you no longer want me as a bed partner, just let me know. I'm only 47 and don't plan on living in a celibate marriage. So, my dear, you have a choice. You can be my wife in all senses of the word, or we can end it right here and now. It's your choice, but I'm not going to wait forever. Ben, are you threatening me? Kathy spit out at me. No, my love, just telling you the facts of life. Our relationship took a deeper nosedive. It was 2 weeks later that I took it to the next level. We were supposed to go to another damn barbecue and I'd had enough. I showered, put on a good suit, and was just lacing up my dress shoes when Kathy walked in. I think you're a little overdressed for Greg's barbecue tonight, she said, looking suspiciously at me. Not going. What do you mean you're not going? I don't think I stuttered. Tonight, I'm going out to a good restaurant, and afterwards headed to the new jazz club over on 4th Ave downtown. Well, what am I supposed to do? Kathy, you have 2 choices. You can take a quick shower and join me, or not. Your choice. Okay, I guess I should have said something earlier, but I was making a point. I could have a life outside of our marriage and group of friends. You're bluffing. I drove away in my 3-year-old Lexus. I had a fantastic time. I saw a friend from work and his wife at the restaurant, and they asked me to join them. When they asked to where Kathy was, I just said she had a previous commitment and that I needed a good meal out. We had a great time, and I even picked up the tab. The jazz club was packed, but luckily, I found a seat at the bar. I sipped on Bailey's and enjoyed the music. When 2 younger women hit on me, I was flattered, but knew that they were cruising for someone to buy them drinks. I'm not stupid, and what 40-year-old guy wouldn't want a young hot woman to spend some time with him, especially after seeing one of Kathy's friends 2 tables away? I thought about dancing with her, but decided not to push my luck. I knew my bride would know everything by the time I got home tonight anyway. Okay, I thought about getting a room and not coming in until mid-morning on Sunday, but like I said, I'm not stupid. 1:15 I walked into a wild woman in our kitchen. Where in the hell have you been, and with whom? My bride wasn't at all happy. I told her everything and didn't even soft soap anything. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm tired and need to take a shower before bed. I was smiling. Why the hell do you need a shower? So help me God, if you've cheated on me, I'll have your butt. I'm shocked that you'd think I'd sleep with someone else. I just need to get the smoke smell of the club off me. And as far as my butt, it's been there for weeks and you haven't bothered to take advantage of it, but soon it won't matter. What's that supposed to mean? You're a smart girl. You figure it out. I left her in the kitchen and went upstairs to our bedroom. Kathy said nothing the rest of the night. I gave her a good night kiss and then rolled over and went asleep. I thought I'd made my point. I had, but it didn't have the effect I'd wanted. It was Thursday and our firm's largest customer was in town for a meeting. I'd planned on taking he and his wife out to dinner, and Kathy had known for a week about it. I'm not going tonight, Kathy announced when I walked through the garage door into the kitchen. She had this stupid smirk on her face, like saying, 2 people can play this game. I was pissed but wasn't going to play into her game. I took out my cell phone. Maria, this is Ben. I know it's a little late notice, but would you like to go to dinner with me and the Browns tonight? There was a pause as Kathy's face dropped. Wonderful. Text me your address, and I'll be there in less than 20 minutes. Make sure to wear your dancing shoes. I hung up. So as you were saying? Kathy stormed up the stair to our bedroom. Again, I had a wonderful night. Maria was the customer service manager, good-looking, single, and Kathy knew all that. After dinner, Maria and I must have danced to 10 songs. I made damn sure Ken and Brenda had a good time, and told them we'd have to do this again the next time they came to town. I haven't had this much fun in ages, Maria said, as we said our goodnights to the Browns. Too bad your wife couldn't make it, but if you ever need another fill-in, just give me a call. It was a work night, so I made sure Maria was home halfway early. I gave her a hug at her door. Like before, Kathy was waiting up for me. Have fun? She asked, but not in a sarcastic tone this time. Yeah, had a pretty good time. You would have enjoyed it, Maria sure seemed to. Her eyes narrowed. Well, I'd love to chit-chat, but I've got an early morning meeting tomorrow. I turned and walked towards the stair. You coming? I asked, looking over my shoulder. She didn't. I apologized over breakfast. I'm sorry about last night, and it was uncalled for me to invite Maria. Let's bury the hatchet and get back to where we were. Okay. We kissed, hugged, and I took her out to dinner that night. We made love when we got home, and I made sure she was 100% satisfied before I finally let her breath. We slept in each other's arms that night. I had my wife back. Life was good again for a long while. Then it wasn't. When she added a ting of red to her hair color, I noticed but said nothing. When I noticed that her portions at dinner were smaller and looked to be losing weight, all I did was hug her tighter and tell her how much I loved her. I started again giving her foot rubs at night, and at least maybe twice a month I'd bring out the massage oil and give her body a twice-over. We always made tender love after that. There were no telltale girls' nights out. She didn't have after-hours business meetings, but I could feel that she was pulling away from me. The kisses weren't as intense, and even when we made love, I felt she was somewhere else. Dinner wasn't totally quiet, but was subdued. I'd barbecued steaks on the grill, and Kathy had made a salad and crescent rolls. I opened a bottle of wine, and all in all it was a lovely meal. The gap had grown larger. Cleaning up the grill, I went over the last couple of months and tried to figure out what more I could be doing, and then realized it wasn't me. I showered, got my clothes ready for work, checked our email, and then went back upstairs. Kathy was reading a book in bed. I did my nighttime routine, slipped under the covers, and set something in motion that could likely end our marriage. Do you love him? I didn't look at her, but she never looked up from her book. I grabbed my 2 pillows. I'll sleep in the Tim's room. I walked out and felt her eyes on my back, but she didn't stop me. I didn't sleep a wink. Hell, I didn't even try. I just kept asking myself how we'd let it get to this point. By 4:30 I was in the shower, and by 5:30 I was out the door on my way to who knows where. I had breakfast at Denny's and was at my desk by 7:30. I got nothing done all day long. Every hour I would check my phone for a text. There were none. I left work about 5:30 and hit Moe's, a local hangout about a mile from where I worked. I saw more than a few friends there, and I went through the motions of having a good time, but my brain was somewhere else. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. Are you coming home tonight? I just looked at the message. Not sure, was my quick reply. I never got another one. I walked in about 2 o'clock in the morning, dead cold sober and not in the greatest of moods. I'd been driving around for the last 2 hours, thinking about my life, marriage, and I didn't like either right now. If she wanted to leave, then she could leave. If I wasn't good enough for her any longer, I didn't even want her to stay. But what I really wanted to know was if she'd slept with him. That question gnawed on my very being. I went to Tim's old room, undressed, and sat on the bed. I was confused at what to do next, but my anger was coming to the surface again. Why? The word kept bouncing off the walls of my brain. I needed an answer. My turning on the bedroom overhead light startled Kathy, and I guess my shouting also had a lot to do with it also. Did you sleep with him? I said in a loud monotone voice that I think the neighbors could hear. She cowered and grabbed for the covers, looking surprised and I think scared. I didn't wait around for an answer. I left, not even bothering to turn off the light. I slammed Tim's bedroom door and spent the next half hour trying to wear out the aged carpet and get control of my emotions. Screaming and shouting wasn't going to solve anything. My fist modified one wall as my foot did another. I'd never been so angry. When I looked down and saw my foot was bleeding, I stopped, and then the pain came rushing in. Damn! It was another long night. The hospital emergency room was busy, and I was put on the back burner. More critical patients needed to be tended to first. An idiot who had tried to put his foot through a wall could wait. 3 broken toes. They were wrapped. I gave the lady my debit card and I was out the door. It was almost 5 in the morning. Driving home was a bitch. I was as quiet as I could be, hobbling in on one good foot. The house was dark and all I wanted was peace and quiet. I lay down on Tim's bed fully clothed and my eyes got wet looking up at the dark ceiling. I wasn't angry anymore, only sad. I guess I fell asleep at some point because the light coming through the windows told me it had to be at least 10. I hit the bathroom, washed up, took a pain pill, and went searching for an outfit. No way in hell I could wear my dress shoes. I managed to put on a sock and slipped on one of my open-toed sandals. It was rough looking, but it would have to do. Now I wished I'd kicked the wall with my left foot because, like last night, driving was a bitch using my left foot. I walked into work at 11 o'clock and answered the same dumb question 100 times. I walked into a wall in the dark and broke a couple of toes. No big deal. I heard the laughs, got no real sympathy, and spent the day at my desk. I'd lost my appetite 2 days ago, so I skipped lunch. About 3, I got an email from Kathy. You coming home tonight? Not sure, I typed back. We need to talk. Why? I felt the heat rising once again. It's not what you think. I love you. Did you sleep with him? I needed to see it in black and white. I never got a reply. I had my answer. I didn't go home. I bought a few things at the mall and checked into a motel. I played on my laptop until almost 11 and went to sleep. I did the same thing every night that week. Friday, I went back to Tony's, had a good dinner, and got hammered. My best guess is the bartender dumped me into a cab. Because I don't remember much, that is until I awoke and found myself in my own bed. My head throbbed and my mouth tasted like, well, I won't go into that. I got up, put on my robe, and headed for the bathroom. Someone had puked in the toilet. I could see the remnants on the rim. I took a slug of mouthwash and looked for my toothbrush. Then I remembered where it was. Mouthwash would have to do. I made it down the stairs and smelled the coffee. Kathy was sitting at the counter, cup in hand. She watched me walk into the room, grab my cup, and fill it with coffee. Feeling better? She asked. Not really. What time did they bring me home last night? After 1. Who put me to bed? The cab driver helped me get you up the stairs, and I finished undressing you after you made the first of 2 deposits in the toilet. After that you just lay down and didn't move for the rest of the night. I had to check your pulse a couple of times to make sure you were still alive. She wasn't smiling. You want to talk? That is without screaming at me? Yeah, I think I can do that, but I'm not promising that if you say something I don't like I won't lose my temper. We sat in silence for a couple of minutes longer. His name is Peter, and for the record, I knew him long before I met you. We grew up in the same neighborhood and went to the same schools together. He was an a-hole then, and he's an a-hole now. He's a customer of my boss, and I saw him for the first time again about a year ago. And, no, I haven't slept with him. I wanna, but I haven't. I was confused. Kathy, you're not making any sense. I thought you said he was an asshole? Look, I don't understand it myself. We've had lunches together, talked on the phone and exchanged emails, that's all. But, would I have gone to bed with him if he asked me? Probably yes. There were another quiet few minutes as I tried my best to digest what she was telling me. Why? I still don't understand. You love me, right? She nodded. You don't want a divorce, is that right? Once again, she nodded yes. Then why on God's green earth would you say that you'd sleep with him? It doesn't add up? I don't fully understand it myself, but in my mind, I've had sex with him a dozen times over. I've thrown him down on the bed, bawled his eyes out, and haven't felt a bit guilty about it. So, would I do it in real life? I'm not sure. Is he still an a-hole and an arrogant prick? Most definitely. As I said, I don't know why. You know if you sleep with him, we're done. Don't you think I know that? Why in the hell do you think we're sitting here talking about it? I probably could have snuck around and done it in a motel at lunch months ago, and you never would have been the wiser. But I couldn't do that to you. I'm too honest. But not too honest to tell me you've got the hots for some other guy, and have already mind-screwed him. Technically that already is cheating. Give me a break. You've never taken another woman to bed in your mind? Please. I've seen you in the damn mall. You like every other guy there, never miss the good-looking one strolling by. How stupid do you think I am? Can you honestly say that in 25 years, while we've made love, you haven't thought of someone else? Even I'm not that good. Well, where do we go from here? Are you going to sleep with him? Because if you are, I hope you do it soon so I can move on with my life. Right now, I'm just marking time with you here and I can't afford any more broken toes. She didn't smile and neither did I. I've just got to get him out of my damn head somehow. He's like a damn drug. I look at him, and all I want to do is rip his clothes off. Hell, he's not even that good looking, and like I said, he's an a-hole. Well, when you figure it out, let me know, but for right now, I'll sleep in Tim's room. Ben, I need you close and in my bed. Next to me, Kathy shot back. Not going to happen. I've been there for months, and it's done me no good. You still think about him, not me. So, like I said, when you're over him, let me know, but don't wait too long. It went on for 2 more months. We ate together, lived together, and even had sex a couple of times. It was good, but any sex right now would have been good at this stage. Then I had a brain fart. I was treating her too good. I was a known quantity, a nice guy. It had worked for over 20 years, but didn't anymore. The new Ben greeted my wife Friday. I made a fabulous breakfast. For one, she did manage to scavenge a half cup of coffee. Now, if she wanted anything from me, it was going to cost her. I did nothing around the house, and when she bitched, I just got in my car and left. When I started going out to dinner by myself and she got upset, I told her to call Peter and leave me the hell alone. Ben, I want you, not Peter. I want our old life back. You've got to be kidding me? You had that life for over 20 years and hated it. Get used to your new life, sweetheart. There was no more lovemaking, only selfish sex. Sometimes I was so rough with her I even scared myself. Kathy at first couldn't get enough of it, but after a month started to pull back. Maybe the crush had faded. I'm not happy, is how she started it Friday after work. I was in the process of changing to go out with a few buddies while she talked. I thought you wanted a new life with what's his name, yeah, Peter. How's he doing anyway? I asked. Don't know, haven't seen him in a couple of months. That was something new. Well, I'm sure you'll find someone else. You're a good-looking, and from what I can remember, used to be pretty decent in bed. Had to get in that last dig. I don't want anyone new. I want you. You had me, but didn't want the old Ben if memory serves me right. So now, I don't care anymore. You do what you want, and I'll do the same. This wasn't how she wanted the conversation to go. Can you stay home tonight? We can talk and see if we can come up with some type compromise. Please. I don't know. We've been planning this night for weeks, and it would be kind of rude for me to back out at the last minute and all. Hell, in actuality, it was just the four of us guys getting together for a couple of brews and a lot of bullshit. Please. I'm afraid if this goes on too much longer, we won't have a marriage any longer, and that would be a real travesty. I really do love you. Well, if you put it that way, maybe I could pass on tonight, but only if you cook a good dinner. Her eyes light up. Just give me an hour or so. Tonight was going to be interesting. Peter may not have been a true bad boy, but his arrogant, self-assured attitude had an effect on his wife. Was she a latent submissive? I doubted that fact but couldn't deny that he turned her on. What she hadn't foreseen was that she would really miss the good old boy Ben, and rather quickly. I didn't let the adage that the grass is greener across the street remain as such. I didn't play her game. I took away the once comfortable life she once had and replaced it with I thought what she was looking for. She didn't like her new reality. Ben, can we go back to what we once had? Kathy, like I said before, you weren't satisfied with our old life. I don't know what you were looking for, and at this point I really don't care. Don't you still love me? I could see in her eyes Kathy was pleading at this point. I guess I still do, but your attitude that you didn't know if you could remain faithful to me hurt me a lot. Ben, I didn't do anything. She stopped. Okay, I did do things that I shouldn't have, and I regret every one of them now. It didn't take long after our last discussion to realize what an idiot Peter was, and that he couldn't care less about me. That is unless I decided to go to bed with him, which I didn't. I let that statement hang in the air. And so, you want what now? You, without the attitude. I want my loving husband back, the one that pampered me and made me feel secure in his arms. And how about if that man is gone and permanently replaced with the new Ben? Well then, you can't imagine how sorry I'll be for wrecking a great marriage over something that probably never would have happened anyway. We took a break and had dinner. I needed to think. Her foreplay began at dinner, and Kathy took it up a notch while we cleaned up afterwards. No words were spoken. We'd done a lot of that before and got us nowhere. A bump, a touch, a smile. She was pulling out all the stops. When she handed me an after-dinner drink, I took it, smiled, and gave her a peck on the lips. The warm liquid lit a fire in me as I watched her sip on her drink and tongue the rim of her glass. Would there be sex tonight, or would it be lovemaking? I wanted the later. Hell, we didn't last 5 minutes. With our half-finished drinks left on the counter, I dragged her to bed. She was wide-eyed when I literally ripped her clothes off and pushed her back on the bed. Looking maybe a little fearful, I could see the resolve leave her face. It wasn't going to be lovemaking, but the same raw sex she'd had to accept over the last month. I think I saw a tear. When I stripped and lay down on the bed next to her, she didn't move. I think she was just waiting for the onslaught. But that didn't happen. It started off slow and hesitantly, but we rebonded that night and made tender and gentle love. It went on for hours, and for the first time in a long while we fell asleep in each other's arms. Did that one night solve all our problems? Not by a long shot. We had issues that needed to be addressed, and over the next 2 months, we had more than a few difficult discussions. I wasn't going to let it drop. She'd started something that needed to be finally buried. I wasn't going to have to deal with it again in the future. Kathy still doesn't exactly understand how or why it happened, but she knows now that if it ever does again, we're done. I'm not going through it again. Does she still lust after other guys? I don't think so, but when we walk around in the mall, and I see dynamite-looking girl, I give her hand a little squeeze and smile. We both know what it means and are secure in the fact that we'll be together always, because that's what people who are in love do. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Ryan felt that his life with Madison was like a dream come true. He always believed he'd found in her a partner with whom he could share complete trust and mutual respect. Madison, with her charming smile and independent spirit, always liked having space for herself, something Ryan deeply admired. He never wanted to be the controlling husband type, and maybe that's why he felt so proud when she announced the trip with her friends to Miami. "It'll be great for you to relax, honey," he had said, genuinely happy for her. The first days of the trip went smoothly. Madison constantly sent messages, photos of stunning beaches, selfies with her friends laughing, and even a video showing a seaside restaurant where they had dinner. Ryan felt connected to her even from a distance, and it reinforced his certainty that they had a solid and special marriage. However, something began to change on the last night of the trip. Her absence that night was the first sign, but Ryan didn't want to feed his insecurities. He remembered his mother's words, who always said, "Don't create storms where there might be no clouds." Even so, something felt off. Madison usually responded quickly, even during busy moments. That night, her only message was brief and evasive: "I think I ate too much, I'm exhausted. Going to bed early." Ryan believed her, but the response echoed in his mind. It seemed hastily written, almost like she wanted to avoid further conversation. The next day arrived, and Madison returned home with the energy of someone who had an amazing experience. She walked through the door with a smile so wide it lit up the room. She hugged Ryan warmly, sharing stories about her friends, the shopping, and how wonderful it was to disconnect from routine. Ryan tried to convince himself he was just being paranoid for doubting all that enthusiasm. "She's happy, and the trip did her good," he thought as he watched her unpack. However, even in the apparent normalcy, something seemed off. Small details began to bother Ryan, though he couldn't pinpoint exactly what. Maybe it was the way she averted her gaze when he asked about her last hours in Miami. Or perhaps it was just the casual way she said she'd lost track of time, as if she wanted to wrap up the subject quickly. Ryan realized his mind couldn't rest. He tried not to appear suspicious and continued acting like the devoted and understanding husband he had always been. Even so, as days passed, that uncomfortable feeling persisted. Ryan began to wonder if his complete trust had actually been a blind leap in the dark. Then, unexpectedly, something happened that brought his lingering unease to the surface. An email notification flashed on Madison's laptop screen, and at that moment, Ryan felt as if fate was trying to tell him something. Ryan was sitting on the couch, his mind wandering as he glanced at Madison's laptop left on the coffee table. He wasn't in the habit of touching her things, always believing in the importance of mutual respect. But that day, a sound caught his attention, the subtle ding of an email notification. Without thinking much, his eyes landed on the screen. Highlighted was the subject: "Thank you for your visit, Ocean Breeze Restaurant." Something about the title made him hesitate. It didn't seem like something he expected, especially from a place he'd never heard of. Curiosity won. With his fingertips, Ryan clicked on the email. He began to read, "Thank you for dining with us at Ocean Breeze. It was a pleasure having you at our establishment. As a keepsake, we've attached a photo of your experience with us. We hope to see you again soon." It was a cordial text but impersonal to him, a stranger. A line below, Madison's name was listed as the guest who made the reservation. The attached photo seemed harmless at first, but when he opened the file, the impact was immediate. There was Madison, at a candlelit table, wearing an elegant black dress he hadn't seen before. But she wasn't alone. Beside her, a man he didn't recognize, with a broad and confident smile, seemed to be holding her hand across the table. Madison's expression in the photo, that hurt. She looked relaxed, happy, almost radiant, like she hadn't seemed in a while. Ryan stared at the image for several seconds, as if his brain was trying to find a logical explanation for what he was seeing. Maybe he's a friend of her friend's, he thought for a moment, trying to calm the wave of emotions starting to form. But the formality of the restaurant, the intimacy of the pose, and the fact that she never mentioned such a dinner, not even among the trip stories, made it impossible to ignore the obvious possibility: Madison was hiding something. He closed the laptop swiftly, as if wanting to erase what he'd just seen. But the image remained vivid in his mind. He felt his heart race and a lump form in his throat. For a moment, he thought about calling Madison and asking directly. But even if he did, what would he say? He wasn't sure he'd hear the truth. Ryan knew he needed more answers. That photo wasn't enough. He needed to understand the context, to find out if that dinner was just a dinner or something much deeper. A whirlwind of thoughts invaded his mind. Why hadn't Madison mentioned that restaurant? Who was that man? And above all, why did she seem so comfortable with him? Sitting on the couch, Ryan began to notice things that had previously gone unnoticed. In the days since Madison returned from Miami, she was more attached to her phone, almost as if she were guarding a secret. He wasn't sure if his mind was just looking for justifications or if he was finally seeing something that had always been there but he'd chosen to ignore. At that moment, Ryan decided that if there was something hidden, he would find out. The feeling of betrayal was still forming, but along with it, a determination began to grow. He knew he needed to stay calm and strategic. The photo was just the beginning, but he was determined to uncover the whole truth, no matter the cost. Ryan spent the following days feeling like a stranger in his own life. The email photo wouldn't leave his mind. He wanted to confront Madison immediately, but he knew that an uninformed conversation could end with evasive excuses or, worse, well-crafted lies. He needed more. He needed certainty. But how? This thought consumed him as he tried to act like everything was normal. Every detail in Madison's behavior now seemed loaded with hidden meanings. She was more reserved, laughing less at the jokes he used to tell during breakfast. Her phone, always in sight, now stayed tucked away in her pocket or bag, even when they were alone at home. And the worst part, she was acting as if she was happier, but in a way that Ryan couldn't be a part of. It was as if she were living two lives, and he was only part of one. One afternoon, the opportunity he'd been waiting for arrived. Madison had rushed out to meet a friend and, in her hurry, left her phone charging in the kitchen. Ryan hesitated, his conscience weighing like a stone in his chest. It's wrong to look, he thought. What if I'm wrong about all this? I'll destroy something that might not even be broken. But the memory of the photo and the unknown man brought back the lump in his throat. With trembling hands, he picked up the device. Unlocking the screen, his heart raced. He quickly navigated through the apps and stopped at the messages. There, he found a conversation with a name he didn't recognize, Lucas. Opening the chat, the confirmation he feared was there, plain and raw, waiting to be discovered. Recent messages said everything he needed to know. I loved our dinner in Miami. Can't stop thinking about you. It was so good to hug you before leaving. I already miss you. And Madison's response, sent the night before, me too. Every moment with you is special. Hope we can see each other again soon. Ryan read those words repeatedly, feeling as if each letter was a knife sinking deeper. He kept scrolling through the conversation, each message confirming this wasn't just a friendship or casual meeting. Photos of moments together, affectionate declarations, and even plans to meet again soon were there, hidden in the silence of the device he'd so often seen in her hands. But what destroyed him completely was a specific message sent by Lucas before Madison returned from Miami. "I hope you're ready to tell him soon. You deserve to be happy." Ryan dropped the phone, feeling the weight of betrayal suffocating every thought. Madison wasn't just physically cheating on him, there was a plan, an intention he didn't fully understand yet. And even so, she had come home smiling, pretending everything was fine. He wanted to scream, cry, confront her right then and there. But at the same time, a new idea began to form in his mind. If Madison thought she could manipulate the narrative, he wouldn't let her. He wouldn't confront her, not now. Ryan realized his pain needed to be transformed into something else. He wanted answers but also justice. With his mind racing, Ryan began to imagine how he could turn the situation to his advantage. Madison wanted to keep secrets. He would bring them to light. And at that moment, the seed of a plan began to sprout. It wouldn't be an impulsive outburst but something much bigger. Ryan knew he couldn't act out of anger, he needed to be cold, strategic. Because, in the end, Madison would have to face the consequences. And he'd make sure it happened in a way she'd never forget. Ryan spent days meticulously planning every detail of what he was about to do. Known for his patience and rationality, he knew his strength now lay in not acting impulsively. Madison believed he was oblivious to what was happening, and he'd use that to his advantage. If she had lied and cheated so deliberately, it was only fair he exposed the truth with the same precision. The idea came on a quiet night as he stared at his bedroom ceiling, his mind racing. Madison's birthday was approaching, and she was excited about celebrating in grand style. "I want a special party this year, something unforgettable," she'd casually said the week before. Ryan had agreed with a smile, keeping the cruel irony of that phrase to himself. It will be unforgettable, for sure, he thought. In the following days, Ryan put his plan into action. He booked an elegant venue, hired a decorating team, and organized every detail to make it exactly as Madison imagined. Fresh flowers, twinkling lights, a carefully selected playlist, everything seemed perfect. He made sure to invite close family, including Madison's very conservative parents who saw her as the exemplary daughter. Additionally, he invited the couple's friends and some of Madison's co-workers, ensuring the guest list was filled with the most important people in her life. The finishing touch was hiring an audiovisual team, saying he wanted to project a special tribute to Madison. He explained to everyone that he was preparing a presentation with photos and videos of their best moments, a touching and intimate gesture. The truth, however, was much darker. Ryan spent nights editing a video that started with the couple's happy moments but ended with the devastating revelation, the messages, the photos, and that selfie at the restaurant that started it all. On the day of the party, the venue was impeccable. Madison was radiant, hugging guests, laughing, and thanking Ryan for being so thoughtful. He maintained a serene smile, greeting everyone, but with a heavy heart and his mind focused on the right moment. Every second felt like an eternity as he waited for everyone to get comfortable, distracted by the soft music and champagne glasses circulating the room. Finally, the moment arrived. Ryan stepped onto the small stage in the center of the room, holding a microphone. He thanked everyone for coming and began his speech, his voice calm but purposeful. "Tonight is about celebrating Madison, the incredible woman everyone here knows and loves. I wanted to do something special to show how important she is to me and to all of you. So I prepared a video with some memories I hold dear. I hope you enjoy it." The room darkened, and the big screen at the back lit up. The first images were of their wedding, bright smiles, loving gazes. Then, photos of trips, family moments, memories that drew sighs and emotional murmurs from the audience. Madison was visibly touched, her eyes shining as she watched. But then, the atmosphere changed. The soft music accompanying the video was interrupted by a cold sound, the ding of a message notification echoing through the speakers. The words appearing on the screen were direct: "I loved our dinner in Miami. Can't stop thinking about you." Silence filled the room. The next image was the photo of Madison and Lucas at the restaurant, projected in high definition for all to see. Murmurs spread, followed by gasps and looks of shock. Madison froze, her face completely pale. The video continued, now showing screenshots of messages exchanged between Madison and Lucas. The tension in the room was palpable. Madison's father stood up abruptly, his face red with anger, while her mother covered her mouth, trying to hold back tears. "How could you?" her father murmured, his voice filled with disgust. Madison stood up suddenly, her hands shaking, trying to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Ryan, still on stage, didn't say a word. He let the silence and images speak for themselves. When the video ended, he calmly stepped down, leaving Madison alone at the center of a circle of accusatory gazes. She began to plead. "Please, let me explain. It wasn't like that. Ryan, can we talk, please?" But he walked past her without looking back, heading toward a group of friends waiting on the other side of the room. For him, justice had been served. The party, which was supposed to be a celebration, had turned into a spectacle of exposed betrayal. Ryan left the venue shortly after, leaving Madison to deal with the chaos she had created. The hall, once vibrant with laughter and music, was now enveloped in an awkward and heavy silence. After Ryan's departure, the scene transformed into a mix of shock, discomfort, and disbelief. All eyes were on Madison, who seemed paralyzed in the center of the room, as if the floor had vanished beneath her. Madison's mother, Mary, sat nearby, her face drawn, clutching a handkerchief with trembling hands. Her father, Richard, remained standing, looking at his daughter with a mix of disappointment and anger. "Is this true?" he finally asked, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. Madison tried to respond, but the words tangled. "Dad, it's not that simple. I can explain." But Richard didn't want explanations. He raised his hand to silence her, a gesture heavy with disapproval. Guests began to leave one by one. Some cast pitying glances at Madison, others looked purely judgmental. Friends who once surrounded her now avoided eye contact, murmuring among themselves as they walked out. It was as if the perfect image she'd built over the years was crumbling in real time, and she could do nothing to stop it. When the last person left, leaving only staff dismantling decorations, Madison sank into a chair, finally letting the tears flow. She wasn't just crying from humiliation but from the reality hitting her like an avalanche. She had lost Ryan and, with him, the life she'd built. Later that night, back at the house she and Ryan shared, Madison sat on the couch, staring into the empty room. The decor felt cold, devoid of any feeling. She knew Ryan wouldn't return that night, perhaps never again. The phone rang, bringing a small spark of hope. It was her mother. "Madison, I don't even know where to start," Mary said, her voice heavy with sadness. "We taught you to be an honest, upright woman. How did this happen?" "I made a mistake, Mom," Madison replied between sobs. "I was confused, felt alone. I don't know what I was thinking." But for Mary, excuses weren't enough. "Confused? You weren't confused, Madison, you made choices. Choices that hurt Ryan, hurt all of us. You put yourself in this situation, and now you'll have to deal with the consequences." Her mother's words hit like a blow. For the first time, Madison realized how much she destroyed, not just her marriage but also the trust and respect of her family and friends. She tried calling Ryan, but he didn't answer. She sent messages, but they went unanswered. The loneliness became unbearable, and she began to wonder if she could ever make amends for what she'd done. Meanwhile, Ryan, in a small nearby hotel, felt a mix of relief and sadness. He knew exposing Madison like that had been harsh, but he also felt she needed to understand the impact of her actions. For the first time in weeks, he managed to sleep, though with a heavy heart. He had lost someone he loved deeply, but he also knew he couldn't let betrayal define the rest of his life. The next morning, Madison woke up in a house now empty of happy memories. Every corner seemed to remind her of what she'd lost. And as she looked out the window, she realized the person who most needed to forgive her was herself. But Madison knew that would be the hardest thing of all. Days turned into weeks, and the void left by Ryan's departure only grew in Madison's life. The silence at home was deafening, and every corner echoed memories of what they'd been. She still tried to reach out, sending messages, emails, even letters, but Ryan remained unyielding. The man who once loved her deeply now seemed unreachable, as if an invisible wall had been erected between them. Meanwhile, Ryan was taking his first steps to rebuild his life. He'd moved into a small downtown apartment, far from the house he once shared with Madison. The simplicity of the place was a relief. Without haunting memories, he began to find a peace he hadn't felt in months. His mornings were quiet, his nights filled with books, music, and the comfortable silence of someone finally allowing himself to breathe. One day, while walking in a park near his new home, Ryan met someone who unexpectedly brought color back into his life. Amanda was a woman with an easy smile and serene eyes. They bumped into each other, he holding a cup of coffee, she walking her golden retriever, Max. The encounter was casual but marked the beginning of something new. Amanda was different. She didn't ask intrusive questions or push, she just shared simple, light moments, something Ryan desperately needed. On the other hand, Madison faced the harsh consequences of her choices. Her job, once a source of pride, became a daily struggle. Co-workers' glances were different, some curious, others clearly judgmental. What hurt most was the emotional distance from her parents. Calls were rare, and when they happened, they were filled with uncomfortable silences and superficial conversations. Her mother, once her biggest supporter, could barely look at her without showing sadness. The final blow came when Madison visited her parents one Sunday, trying to reconnect. During dinner, Richard, her father, who rarely spoke about the incident, broke the silence. "Madison, you knew this would destroy your life, didn't you? That you wouldn't just lose Ryan." His words were direct but filled with a disappointment Madison didn't know how to fix. I thought I could fix everything, Dad. But I didn't know it would be like this," she replied, her voice choked. "And now, what will you do with what's left?" Richard asked. The question hung in the air, a challenge Madison knew she had to face alone. As Madison tried to piece her life back together, Ryan found strength to move forward. His relationship with Amanda blossomed unexpectedly. He still carried emotional scars, but Amanda never tried to rush his healing. She respected his pace, bringing only genuine joy and honesty. Ryan began to realize there was life after pain, and that love, though fragile, could still be found. Months later, Ryan received a letter from Madison. She didn't ask for forgiveness or beg him to return. It was a letter of sincere regret, where she admitted her mistakes and accepted the consequences of her choices. "I destroyed something I can never rebuild," she wrote. "But I hope you find happiness because you deserve much more than I could offer." Ryan read the letter in silence, sitting in his small apartment. He felt neither anger nor joy, just a sense of closure that, in a way, freed him. He knew the chapter with Madison had ended, and for the first time, he was ready to turn the page. Madison, in turn, found a sort of redemption by rediscovering her inner strength. She began therapy, gradually rebuilt her relationship with her parents, and dedicated her time to volunteer work, helping women in difficult situations. Though the pain of losing Ryan remained a constant reminder, she used it as fuel to become a better person. The story didn't end with reconciliation but with growth. Both went their separate ways, learning the importance of honesty, respect, and the courage to start anew. In the end, the greatest lesson was that even after chaos, life always finds a way to move forward. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.
Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
Gabrielle Winder sat in a quiet booth towards the back of Sackers, a local bar and grill just outside her hometown of Plainview, Arkansas, near Nimrod Lake. It was the 23rd of August. The time was 8:30. She knew the ritual. This was the 6th year in a row she had sat in this booth and waited for the clock to strike 8:39, so she could tell him all about the year and maybe say goodbye. Glancing slowly around the interior of the local watering hole, Jacob Billing, known locally as the Bear, plied his ministrations to the top of the White Oak Bar. He was the owner, bartender, and bouncer of the establishment. She looked past where he was standing, her eyes drawn to the methodical movement of color in the windows behind where he stood. For as long as Gabrielle could remember, the Budweiser sign, blaring its neon red greeting, had competed for attention with the blue and gold Coors sign in the front two windows. She always felt the two signs made the front of the place look like a weird Christmas display year-round. Her eyes returned to Bear, who at a glance seemed to be haphazardly running the rag in his hand over the flat surface, but upon closer inspection, one could pick up his careful, loving, almost tender care in everything he did for his establishment. Gabrielle chuckled a bit. Her father had told her once it was as if the bar was his wife, and he went about to ensure her happiness in all he did. She noticed the young kids in the first booth up by the bar as they got up to leave. Probably a summer romance. She took them both for no more than high school freshmen or sophomores. That left the guy in the booth 2 up and across from her as the only other person in the place. A stranger that wasn't at all unusual for this time of year. It was a very slow night, for which she was glad, sighing heavily. She sipped on her beer, the first legal one Bear had ever served her. Gabrielle was going into her senior year of high school when her life changed. She was just a youngster starting to grow into her womanhood back then. She had gone from being a shy, skinny kid with long, straight black shoulder-length hair and dark brown eyes, to the way her body had developed. Now at 24, her body was sleek and well-defined. She had worked hours at toning it. She was 5 feet 7 inches, 128 pounds, and although not model material, she would turn heads in any crowd. The raven black hair that flowed aimlessly to the middle of her back and dark brooding eyes were the only hints of her Cherokee Indian heritage, something she was, and always had been, extremely proud of. As she sat in quiet contemplation, the memories came cascading back without provocation, hanging all about her like humidity on a hot summer day. She gave in, letting herself drift back to that night 6 years ago. "Grebs, wait up," she heard her best friend Kirsten Tinnery yell over to her. "Well, hurry up, slowpoke," she laughingly replied. Kirsten, he had been her best friend and buddy since his family had moved into the farm across the road from her family when they were both 6. Grebs was his very own private nickname for her, and she would only allow him to call her that. Kirsten was a likable guy, though a tad bit skinny. He was actually well-muscled at 5 feet 11 inches, 175 pounds, light brown hair and sparkling hazel eyes. He and Gabrielle had done everything together, growing up: fishing, hunting, cooking, cleaning house, playing baseball, basketball and tennis, as well as playing card games. They had joined 4-H, learned to ride horses and care for livestock together, and with their parents, who were also good friends, had hiked, camped, canoed, and learned about nature with each other. During the summer, both kids looked forward to the family campouts at Nimrod Lake. Only 5 or 6 miles from their houses, the lake offered the friends time to explore and discover a completely new universe in the paradise setting. That special year had been a turning point in their relationship. They were both preparing to enter their sophomore year of HS in the fall. By June, they realized they had fallen in love with the other. Both of them understood that what they now felt towards each other was much deeper and richer than it had ever been before. Their parents were supportive of the relationship once they discovered their kids had become an item. Not one of the parents understood exactly how deep the bond between their children had become. Kirsten was the first guy to hold Gabrielle's hand, the first to hold her and whisper lovers' secrets in her ear, giving her the first kiss as well as her first French kiss. In early August of that same year, they shared themselves with one another for the very first time and became lovers, happening as it did out in the Tinnery's field, under their favorite tree. Kirsten, true to form, had held her after that first time, reassuring her of his love, after which he asked her in all truthfulness if this meant he could take her to homecoming in October and prom in the spring. Then before she could answer, he asked if this meant they were going steady. When she said yes to all three, all the boy could do was grin ear to ear. She thought it was so cute. By the evening of the August 23rd, the young lovers had been together 4 times. They had made some time to be together that day, and for some reason it had seemed very special, almost as if they had become one that afternoon. Since the two families were enjoying the last week-long campout by the lake of the summer, they asked their parents if they could go up to Sackers for a root beer. Her dad said, "Okay." As they walked towards the small bridge that separated the campsites from the bar and grill area, Curson stopped and kissed Gabrielle. There was raw passion in that kiss mixed with unbelievable tenderness. When they broke, Gabrielle asked, "Not that I mind, but what was that for?" "Ever since we made love today, I can't believe how close to you I feel, how special it was today. I mean, every time has been wonderful, but today was so beautiful so. I wanted to just crawl inside your skin and be part of you." Curson's smile lit up her whole world. She brushed the hair out of his eyes. "I know it was that way for me too today." She kissed him again, just to watch his eyes sparkle. Just as they crossed a bridge about a quarter-mile from the bar, Curson kissed her again, then they exchanged "I love yous," and he said, "I have to pee. You go on ahead. I'll catch up in a moment." She walked aimlessly along the river path towards the bar, the low-hanging branches brushing against her head and face. She waved to Betsy, Mr. Bear's niece, as she sat on the back steps of the tavern. Gabrielle suddenly screamed as a pair of rough hands grabbed her. "Looky what I got, Tommy. After we knock over the store, we have something to play with tonight." A sickly voice resounded in her ear. Another voice said, "Look on the steps, another one." Gabrielle bit the hand over her mouth and screamed, "Becky, run, get help, hurry." At the same time, her captor yelled, "You little witch." She watched a hand move towards her face and remembers hearing Curson's voice. He was screaming something, then all was black. Gabrielle woke up in the hospital about an hour later. Her mom and dad were with her. Comforting her, she had asked, "Where's Curson?" Her mom got a funny look on her face and looked up at her dad, who swallowed very hard. Fear gripped Gabrielle's mind. She started shaking her head side to side and asked again in a tear-filled voice, "Where is my Curson? Daddy, where is he?" Her father took her in his arms and held her. "Baby, he was shot and killed by the men that attacked you tonight. He was protecting his friend, the girl he loved." "I'm so sorry, honey." Gabrielle tried to understand. She tried to speak, but her mouth wouldn't work except to cry as she held her daddy and her mommy as they put their arms around her to comfort her in her time of loss. Sometime later that night, Curson's mom and dad came in, and all Gabrielle could do was hold them and cry some more. At that moment, no one realized how devastating the loss would be. Gabrielle was shaking as she brought herself back to the present. She glanced around. No one was looking at her. She was weeping quietly. Looking at her watch, she noted she still had 5 minutes. She sighed and let her mind wander back. She remembered that over the next month, she slowly pieced together the circumstances of the next few minutes after she was rendered unconscious. Becky told her, "You yelled, then the guy holding you punched you in the head and you fell to the ground. One of the guys started coming towards me when Curson charged them with a boat, or he picked up from a rowboat someone tied up near the path. He yelled, 'Get away from them,' then smacked the guy charging me in the head with the oar, giving me the time I needed to get inside and get my uncle." Mr. Bear told her he responded to his niece's screams by grabbing a shotgun. Then he sent 2 of his customers whom he knew had rifles in their cars to get them and circle either side of the bar. Watching through the back window, he saw Curson charge the remaining 2 men, smacking the first man, the one who they later learned had hit you, with the shank of the oar on his knee, then twirled around hitting the last guy in the ribs with the edge of the paddle. His attacks were startling and brutal, as both of those men moved as rapidly as they could down the path away from the 2 of you. Curson glanced quickly around. Finding no more danger, he dropped the paddle, then started to bend down towards you. He suddenly stopped and seemed to stiffen, then stood up and took a step towards the bar. Mr. Bear continued, a catch in his voice clearly evident. "I looked down in horror and saw the first guy who Curson had saved Becky from. He was now standing, his right hand covering a bloody wound on the side of his head that he had received a moment earlier. His left arm outstretched pointing towards Curson. The man was holding a gun. Curson took a step towards him. "I think to get between you and the gunman." The man screamed something and then fired twice. Both bullets struck him in the stomach. I moved to grab the doorknob and glanced at the clock. It was 8:39. Then I flung the back door open. The guy that had shot Curson looked up the steps at me, then started to swing his gun towards me. I unloaded both barrels into his head and chest. He didn't have a chance. As I started to move out to get to Curson, who was now on his knees and one arm holding himself up, his other arm around his stomach, suddenly 2 bullets slammed into the doorframe beside me. It seemed the other 2 goons were shooting at me. I moved back into the bar. The all boys I had sent out to get their guns opened fire with their hunting rifles while I reloaded the shotgun. There was a long silence as "Alone I give up" echoed into the night, and one of the 2 remaining rowdies came into the light with his hands on his head. We quickly found out that one of the fellows with the rifles had found his mark. 2 of them were now dead. No one moved for a second, and then the night lit up with the sounds of sirens. It seems Becky had called the sheriff. One of my buddies took control of the man who had surrendered. "Becky and I got to you 2 a moment later. Curson had just said something to you. I've been over pulling him up on his knees, leaned him into my chest so Becky could get some of the towel she had brought onto the wounds to stop the blood flow. He looked up and asked me to tell you goodbye, and that he both loved you and knew you loved him. Your parents had heard the ruckus at your campsite, came running up to us just as the sheriff arrived. He lasted until 8:51, but he got to say I love you and his goodbyes to his parents. They were holding him when he died. Your parents got to you by then. They were cradling you as life left him. He was holding your hand when he died, honey. Bear concluded his story. Gabrielle opened her eyes as she whispered, Curson, I wish you would have held on so I could have said goodbye. It was 8:39. She felt a twinge of regret, but for some reason she was more comforted this year than before. Oh well, she thought. Time heals all wounds. She sat and told him all about the year, the goings-on in her house and his parents' house, including the wonderful news that his parents had been approved to adopt the twins they had been foster parents to for the last 3 years. Also, wonder of wonders, his mom had allowed her to go into Curson's old room, box up everything, repaint, and redecorate it since the twins were girls. Running out of things to say, she just sat and thought about her bestest friend and how much she missed him. Then it was over, at least for another year. She could go on with her life. Becky waited until Gabrielle sighed and started to lift her head, then slid into the bench across the booth from Gabrielle, who looked up with tear-stained cheeks and smiled at her friend. Becky said, Hi. Hi yourself. You okay now? Yeah, for another year. Gabrielle, I've been here with you for 6 years. You've never told me why you can't move on? I've asked myself that exact same thing for 6 years, Becky. I was the only one who didn't get to say goodbye, to see him go. I'll not see him again to say it until I cross over, at the end of my life. I know it's stupid, but I want it. No needed to say goodbye. Trust me, Becky, it's getting easier to live life afterwards. But I am healing. Gabrielle smiled at her friend. I'll see you tomorrow for breakfast, Becky remarked. Gotta get home to my hubby. Getting up to leave, she went out the back door to where her truck was parked and left. Gabrielle sighed and allowed her head to fall into her hands, elbows on the table, tears flowing easily as she felt him with her once again. Sitting with her head in her hands, she didn't see the 2 drunken college boys come in to get a couple of 12-packs or that they noticed her. Bear was outside making sure the remaining 6 college rowdies all stayed in the truck, while Carla, the regular night shift girl, was watching the cash drawer and filling orders. The 2 Romeos staggered over and sat down with Gabrielle, one sliding in across from her, the other one next to her, moving his arm around her shoulders. He pulled her close to him. Startled, she gave out a cry. What the hell do you want? Get your arm off of me. Get out of here and leave me alone. She was absolutely flabbergasted at the man's gall. The man across the table slurred out, Ah, come on, honey. You don't need to cry over him. We'll make everything all better. Now quite playing hard to get. He winked at the guy who was still holding her. First, get off of me. Poking the guy in the ribs, he moved his arm as she pushed him out of the booth and onto the floor. Second, that is the worst southern drawl and pickup line I've ever heard. Third, get out of here and leave me alone. Both men got real quiet. Then the guy who was sitting across from her snapped his hand and slapped her hard on her cheek. The unexpected move had Gabrielle back on her heels, so to speak, and she moved into the corner of the booth, her arms close to her body, her hands up near her face guarding. The man who had been deposited on the floor crawled back up from the floor, putting his knee on the booth seat. So you like it rough, which, well, I like it rough too. He spit the words out like they were physical barbs, then lunged at Gabrielle. She screamed, no. The man stopped inches from Gabrielle's face, then staring at her in obvious pain, mouth hanging open. No words coming from the evil-smelling canyon that now dominated his face. He seemed to be frozen in place. He slowly slid backwards to the end of the booth. The man let out a low groan of pain mixed with terror, whispering, My balls, oh my God, he's got me by the balls. He lowered his head to the bench and just shook. Gabrielle looked up to see a tall man of average build. He had a gentle look in his eyes, she noticed as he met her gaze briefly. He smiled, then nodded back at her. He looked at the rapidly sobering man sitting across from her. The tall man's voice was firm but had a distinct edge to it. Okay, boys. This lady has made it very clear she doesn't want your attention. Furthermore, she has asked you, not once, but twice, to leave her alone. So, I'll leave the gruesome details to your imagination if you decide to challenge. Now get lost. The stranger released his grasp, then slammed his fist back between his buddy's legs. The man lurched forward and slid down under the table, as a low, almost inaudible groan tumbled from his lips. The guy across the table from Gabrielle jumped up to grab the stranger, was met with a hard, well-placed left jab that landed on the bridge of his nose, splattering blood over both of the antagonists, as the drunk student fell limply back onto the bench. The stranger looked at Gabrielle. Sorry about the mess, ma'am. It would probably be best if you got another seat after I escort our 2 guests out to their car. All Gabrielle could do was nod her head in agreement. The man gathered the 2 goons, then drug and pushed them to the bar where they picked up the 2 12-packs of beer, then manhandled them to their awaiting truck. The boys took off out of the parking lot only to be immediately pulled over by not 1, but 3 sheriff's cars. It seemed Carla made a phone call to alert them. When the man came back inside, Carla handed him a wet rag to clean himself off. He handed the cloth back when he was finished, nodding to the woman in thanks. He found that he had a friend sitting at his booth. Gabrielle, she introduced herself, as she shook his hand. The man mumbled something that sounded like Kenny, as he stared at her with big doe eyes. Gabrielle smiled. The man's gentleness disarmed her. She found him easy to talk to, and was amazed at how quickly he drew her in, as she ended up telling him all about Kirsten. He seemed amazed at the depth of commitment the two had for each other. When he said, "I am truly sorry for the loss all the people involved incurred," she didn't know why, but she felt he really meant it. As the bar closed down, Gabrielle asked where his car was parked. He pointed to a late 90s model Mustang. She turned and asked Kenny if he would mind giving her a ride home. Her raw emotions coupled with the beer she had were too much to risk the drive. As they drove along, she pointed out the house where Kirsten had lived. Kenny studied the place with genuine interest. Surprisingly, he pulled into her parents' driveway before she told him where it was. He had walked her to her door when she politely asked, "Would you like to come in?" Standing off to the right side of the porch, with a sad faraway look in his eyes, he replied, "I don't think I'm allowed." Gabrielle stood by the front door a bit, dumbfounded by his answer, then noticed a tear running down his cheek. "You okay?" she asked softly. He nodded, then sighed. "Well, do you like the way I would have looked? I guess this is about what I should have been like at our age now." She stared at the man in front of her. "What do you mean?" she asked, confusion apparent in her voice. The man looked at her, emotion readily apparent on his face as he gushed. "I have missed you so much, Grebs, and I didn't mean to leave you that night, especially without saying goodbye. I don't know what you did, but they sent me back for just a few brief spans of time, and that allotment is growing short. Oh my Grebs." The man both sighed and let out a soft sob. As he continued, "The Lord knows, I love you so much." An impossible hope sprang up in Gabrielle as she saw the man in front of her for who he was. Moving quickly towards him, she grabbed him and fell into his embrace, then pulled him down to her, and her lips touched his. Both of them were lost in the moment. When they broke, she looked into his eyes. "Kirsten, it's really you. You're here holding me. How? How is that possible?" "I don't know, but I think it's so we can say a proper goodbye to each other. I didn't get to leave anything else for you, so," he grinned. The way Gabrielle had always loved the little boy caught look. The night air, which had been hot and stifling, was suddenly cool and refreshing as she looked up at him. It suddenly occurred to her she had something very special to show to him. "Kirsten, I need to go get something. If I run inside to get it, will you still be here when I get back?" He thought and acted as if he were listening to something, then nodded yes and said, "Hurry." Gabrielle flew into the house, opened her parents' bedroom door without knocking. Her mom and dad, who were both reading, looked up at their wild-eyed daughter. "No time to explain. Call Mom and Dad Tinnery. Tell them they have to get over here in the next 2 to 3 minutes. There is a miracle standing on our front porch. Hurry." As she left the room, her father grabbed the telephone. Something in her voice told him don't ask. After calling them, he and his wife scrambled out of their bed, threw on their robes, then headed downstairs. They saw their daughter fly out the front door in front of them. Now, why did she get him up, they wondered. Kirsten was stunned when Gabrielle returned, the screen door slamming shut behind her. She was holding a child, a boy by the looks of him around 5 or 6. Kirsten noticed Grebs was shaking as she moved across the old banister front porch towards him. "It still needs painting," flickered across his mind. Gabrielle sat down on the porch. The sleepy child hugged his mother. "You did leave me something, Kirsten. You left me our son, growing in my womb. And this beautiful little boy is Kirsten Winder Tinnery, your son, my love." "Our son." Kirsten was speechless, but then no more than Greb's parents, who had emerged from the house and were now standing on their porch, staring at a young man on their front porch that had been murdered 6 years ago that very night. Kirsten looked at both of them. "Could I have a hug? I need to say goodbye, and I don't have very long." Both of the Winders moved slowly past their daughter and grandson to face him. Mrs. Winder grabbed Kirsten, followed in short order by her husband. After a few moments in the embrace, Mrs. Winder remarked, "Now, my boy, go meet your son. He asks about you a lot." Kirsten nodded and knelt down in front of Gabrielle and reached out a trembling hand to touch his son. The child looked up at the man in front of him. "Are you my real daddy?" Kirsten replied, "Yes, son. I am your daddy." Kirsten put out his arms, allowing his son to come to him for their first embrace. His son held him, smiling. "I prayed to God for a long time to send you back and help Mommy not to be sad anymore, so she can be happy like me. I know a bad man hurt you, and God has to have you in heaven so you won't hurt. I love you, Daddy, and I will take care of Mommy for you." Kirsten thought he sounded so grown up. He was very proud of his son. "My son, my precious child. I love you too, and I love your Mommy so very much. Thank you for taking care of her because I can't. But don't worry, I will watch over both of you, even when you can't see me or hear me. Now let me tell you a secret only we can know, promise." "Promise," the child replied, making an exaggerated X over his little chest. Kirsten smiled and returned the gesture. "I promise you, when it's time for Mommy to go be with God, a long time from now, I will come to her and take her to heaven, okay?" "Okay, Daddy," came his proud answer. "Now I need you to go to Grandma and Grandpa, because I need to give your Mommy and my wife enough loving to last until the end of her life." Kissing each other, father and son separated with, "I love you," and "Goodbye." exchanged for the last time this side of eternity. Grabbing his love, while still sitting on the porch, they both held on to each other, allowing the moment to fill them to the brim, feeling two more sets of arms enfold him. He looked up into the shocked faces. "Mama, Daddy," he said as his parents were also allowed to partake of the miracle of a child's faith. For a few brief moments of time, three families said the things to each other that are necessary for healing. Then at Kirson's insistence, final goodbyes spoken, hugs and kisses exchanged. Gabrielle took Kirson's hand and walked with him towards the road, knowing it would be their last walk for a while. Kissing her fiercely, Kirson took his love in his arms. "Grebs, I want you to get out and experience life. All it has to give. Find the things you want to do. Go to the places you want to see. Find love, accept it in return. Give of yourself as much as you can. But remember, when it's all over, I'm coming to get you, and for a long time we will share each other with just God, because I'm waiting for you." They kissed one last time, then looking deeply into each other's eyes, said goodbye. Gabrielle hugged him and closed her eyes. After she felt his arms go limp from around her, she stepped back away from him. A few moments later, she slowly opened her eyes, looking around, and he was gone. Sighing, she heard the door on the mailbox creak. Going over, she looked inside to find 6 envelopes, one addressed to each of the 6 people in the 2 families. No one would ever reveal to the others what he had written to them. No one ever asked. Gabrielle grabbed the letters. As she turned towards the house, she heard his voice on the wind near her ear. "Goodbye. I love you, Grebs." A single tear fell down her cheek. "I love you too, my Kirson. Thank you. Goodbye." She heard him sigh, and then the sounds of the night came rushing back into her mind. She stood and cried for a few minutes. Only there was no sadness, only joy. It filled her so completely, she had to let it out, and tears seemed so appropriate. Looking eastward, she saw the first light of the dawn of a brand new day break the horizon. Her heart was light, as were her footsteps. She turned and walked towards the house, ready to face a future that was suddenly bright with promise. Epilogue. 2 weeks after her 83rd birthday, Gabrielle lay in her hospital bed, her body failing, waiting patiently for her best friend to come and escort her to her new home. Her oldest child, Kirson, now 65, was in the room, talking and reading stories to his mom as she rested. He looked up as the door to the room opened to find his father standing there, looking much as he remembered him from all those years before. Kirson stood. His dad said, "Hi. Sorry you can't hug me. I don't have a physical body for this trip." "I understand, Dad. Thanks for watching out for your mom for me. I love you for it all the more." "You're welcome, Dad. I want to know something. Will you?" The embarrassment shone on his face. "Son, we will both come back for you and your lovely bride. But right now your mom and I have a date, so tell her goodbye." Mother and son said their piece to each other. Returning to his seat near the window, he watched as his father moved over by the bed. Kirson looked at Gabrielle. He had a huge smile on his face. "You ready?" "Yes, love. I've waited patiently for you, for such a long time." Taking his best friend by her hand, Kirson gently pulled Gabrielle up from the bed towards himself. Their son watched in awe as a spirit of his mother stood from within her body. She looked to be 20 years old. The two lovers embraced, said goodbye to their child. Then they slipped out the door as the cardiac monitors blared their trumpet call, another person freed to eternity. Kirson sat in the chair in the corner of the room as the hospital staff made a valiant effort to save the old woman. The doctor finally said, "It's too late." Kirson distinctly heard, "Grebs, wait up," followed by, "Well, hurry up, slowpoke," and the laughter of little children as they run through the meadows on hot summer days fading away in the distance. Kirson smiled, gathered his things to go sign the appropriate paperwork, make the phone calls to his 3 half-siblings, then get home and try to explain this to his wife. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.